Everybody ready? Okay. Good evening, FMAC committee members, and Trustee Rawlings, and all those residents from the village who are present. I am Steve Glender. I was asked to be the new chair of the Flood Mitigation Advisory Committee of Mamaroneck. I'd like to thank all of those who have supported me with such kind words of encouragement, and of course, my wife Nancy, who gave me the immediate and no doubt yes when I brought up the topic. I also think all in this room should thank Tony Gelber for his leadership over the past 2 years, and Leilani for being the BOT liaison. I'm also very excited to have Peggy Jackson back on board. Thank you, Peggy. Your experience as a former chair and an equal really equals no other. I'd also like to announce Elsa Rubin has resigned from the board. Great news that she will continue to work with us regarding local flood issues, but not as a board member. I've also been asked and advised by many people that it's very important to get through the agenda before we get to public comments, and we'll appreciate if we could try to stick to that the best as we can. I think we could try out if someone has a purposeful suggestion for a topic that we're covering to mention it. Also, if you have something you'd like to speak on publicly at the next meeting or something you'd like to mention to the committee privately, please email me, sglenner@vomny.net, which is also on the FMAC website, sglenner@vomny.net. I thought, since it is kind of a beginning of a new year, new term, or some of the accomplishments that the village, the town, and the village and FMAC have accomplished over the past year. We have had a couple of meetups, local meetups, in Beaver Creek and Harbor Heights, and we'll be discussing the Harbor Heights one, which just happened a little bit more. And we will continue to have these local meetups. We will be having, I'm told, a flood mitigation coordinator position, which I understand will be added into the June budget. We added Beaver Swamp to the Mamaroneck and Sheldrake Rivers to be studied, and it has been funded by the county. We did produce building code enhancements for the village. There is a resident assistant initiative, which is 30 grand that was put aside for flooding victims to pay for flood mitigation best practices. The approval, well, I guess the endorsement of the Greenway project from the CFTE. Thank you, Kate. Also a support of the study also by Kate on the I-95 flooding, including the Gedney Pond detention and storage. The replacement did actually start for the Waverly Avenue Bridge, but one thing FMAC did was it was originally part of the ACOR project, and we realized that it was being replaced by the town, so additional funds for additional things outside that. They basically reallocated those funds that were allocated towards the Waverly Avenue Bridge. And a proposed study of water retention and detention possibilities for the Mamaroneck Reservoir and Saxon Woods Park, which Bernie will get to a little bit more in his today as well. And a couple of very recent good things that kind of happened on the legislative area, and that's the announcement of the Office of Flooding and Prevention and Mitigation on a state level. So hopefully that will help us out a lot. Instead of continuing with all the things that we did, Tony here is going to talk about some of his goals and the simple plan that he has mentioned. So Tony's participating virtually today. So Tony, do you want to just unmute yourself and start on that?
Sure. Good evening. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, committee. Welcome back, Peggy.
Thank you.
So at the last meeting, Sharon, our mayor-elect and now our mayor, has said she wanted to come up with a simple plan. So I put together a document. I don't know, Stephen, can we share that? Do you want me to try?
Actually, I wasn't able to get that done. I don't see any mechanism of doing that. Could you share your screen by any chance?
Let me give it a shot. 1 second,
Okay.
please. Share. Okay, 1 second. You see this?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I know in the last year or so, we've asked for a lot of studies, and I felt incredibly frustrated because we didn't go after, not we, but I guess the village didn't go after the Army Corps to try to hold them to task. Then we had the meeting in October with the Army Corps, and they kind of gave us the green light to do some of the projects on our own. And I know in our committee there's disagreement a bit on whether we can actually get this done, by the village, but we do have a plan from the Army Corps. So basically, I'm thinking, okay, let's see if we can follow the basic of that plan, and starting at Columbus Park and working toward Long Island Sound. And so this simple plan has 4 pieces to it. 1, follow and implement the approved Army Corps plan, Columbus Park to Long Island Sound. I'll go back to that in a minute. Those are the projects. The second is all the studies that you mentioned, Stephen, that we've been asking for 2 years. Let's really follow them all up and get them done and completed. Third, we've been trying to do emergency preparedness, and there's a CERTS team that the town has, and I think we could enact one of them. So do that. And then what
So,
else we come up
Tony,
with?
can you speak louder?
Yeah, these
I'm
mics
sorry?
are.
Could you speak a little more loudly, please?
Sure.
People are having trouble hearing you.
Speaker on top of the rail and then.
Yeah, sure.
So
It's really good.
where should I go back, or are you okay?
Keep going.
Keep going. Okay. And then item 4 is other projects that we determine that we can move forward. And so this is where my head's at. And then so if you look at the projects that I think we can start according to the meeting with the Army Corps, the first thing they said, so under 1, there's A, B, and C, right? So A, they are saying we need this project partnership agreement, right? ASAP, between the Army Corps, the state, the county, and the village management, village. And if we do that, they'll agree to not jeopardize the project. They'll reimburse us for funds. And I don't know what else has to be in that agreement, but to me, it's not rocket science. They promised to have this to us last July, but this is a specific agreement to have these other projects done. And then projects, right? So Columbus Park, the open channel. I think many of us are in favor of an open channel, right? So the Army Corps said that, okay, we have to do an H&H study to prove that the open channel will meet the flows of the tunnel, right? I think the board is going to have to agree to lose some of the parking spaces, right? Because even with Kate's plan, you will lose parking spots, right? So I think, so what I tried to lay out here, not to go into all this detail, is some of the steps that we need to go through these projects, right? Before I get off my horse here, I wanted to show you the pictures from the last flood, right? Because the Army Corps has been obsessed with Ward Avenue, right? I have never seen Ward Avenue as a big problem or the biggest problem. So here's about 10 o'clock, the last heavy rain we had, right? That's the railroad bridge with Halsted behind it. Here's Anita Lane. And as Peggy well knows, the county has agreed to fix this several years ago, and they seconded that when we had the meeting in October. So that needs to be done, right? Here's Ward Avenue at about the same time. There's a lot of space under Ward Avenue. Here's Tompkins Avenue, right? So I'm suggesting start with the Army Corps project, get this agreement in place so that we can not jeopardize their funding and the project. We can get them to reimburse us, and then go through the steps we need. And then the 6th one here, which I know is near and dear to Peggy's heart, is Mamaroneck River, Grove Street to Mamaroneck Avenue, Harbor Heights, right? They have said that we need an updated H&H study. And really, they didn't, when they eliminated it from this project, they did it because of the cost benefit ratio. And I know Bernie has some ideas for helping with that. But I think we need to get this study going in that area to see, okay, what should we do and how much is it gonna cost? So that's pretty much my idea. And, you know, I did a whole bunch of more work on scopes of work and other stuff like that, but I don't need to bore you with all of that right now. Thank you, Stephen.
All right, thank you, Tony. Anybody in the board have any thoughts or comments? Ernie?
Okay, so what do we do first? H&H study for the tunnel?
First
Do we
thing
go
we
after
do,
the Anita Bridge?
first thing we do, Bernie, is to get this project partnership agreement drafted and signed. That's
Okay.
A, that's number one. The second part is B, Columbus Park Open Channel, right? The board has to discuss it and agree that we're gonna lose a certain amount of parking spots. Because if they don't agree to that, then I don't think we can do the open channel, because you're gonna rip that parking lot in half, you're gonna lose some spots. If they agree to that, then we do a sketch and an H&H study with a permitting review and a cost estimate, right? And then I think you got to go into design and decide, okay, are we going to do how much of Kate's design, how much just basic stuff are we going to do? But to me, that's step number one. In concert with that, Anita Lane Bridge, let's get on the county, let's get on DEC and see what are the options for that historic bridge. If
Tony,
we
with all due
lose-
respect, we
Yes.
should get on to the county because this is a project that they committed to in 2010, and we just need to hammer them to get them to do it. I think however they get it done, we shouldn't even waste our time trying to do the rest of it. Let's
No,
just
I'm a-
concentrate
I'm
on
a-
them.
I agree with you, Peggy. This they should do. I agree, absolutely.
No, but I think we should just lean on them to take care of it, period, however they need to do it.
Yeah, but the village has a different plan that they want. I mean, they want to start with the Ward Avenue Bridge and take
In the Army Corps or the village?
the village.
Yeah, but the center abutment, that was being funded by the county and it was
No,
part
no, I'm
of.
talking about their plan is to start at Ward.
Anita Lane Bridge, though, was a county project from way back when. That can be done at the same time. And that should be done exclusively with county funds that we shouldn't have to be involved with. Because they committed to doing.
Problem with ACE.
Pardon?
It wasn't a problem with ACE.
No, they blessed it. Because when they took the wing wall out, they had planned to take out to narrow the center abutment. They just never did it. So.
One thing I do want to mention is, with the new situation of people commuting, the parking that is, along the railroad is actually being used for something else. And that's still our parking. I see commercial vehicles there now. So I think it's some kind of, it's being used for something else, I think. Yeah. So that parking is still available. So if we were to take out half the parking lot of the main parking lot on Jefferson Avenue, I think we'll be okay. Do you know what that's being used by any chance?
I think it's a project not done by the village, but I know you're talking about they're working under the bridge.
Because there's also though, like, I think commercial vehicles are like,
Yeah, they have-
not those, like, they look like,
Parking for
yeah,
commercial
yeah,
vehicles?
parking for commercial
Yeah, they have
vehicles.
vehicles parked under the bridge and then on the small little island, like there's some vehicles there.
I think there's additional after that cage. I think it's, yeah, I
Not
think,
for the construction, Manny. If this is on an ongoing basis, there are,
I can
there
look
are
for that.
commercial
you're meant to-
vehicles being parked there, whether it's just being, ignored or.
yeah, I guess the point that it is that there's a lot of still unused parking. It's because the way commutes change. I mean, frankly, I haven't been to work in a month. I work in my
But that
basement.
could
when it doesn't-
also change down the road.
It could, but I
You know,
think
it's
it's,
something we need to look at and see how many exact spots we'd need to lose to have
yeah.
the channel versus
Mhm.
the tunnel.
I think what to do here is, I mean, Tony has a great list. It's a list that we already have made, have approved most of this stuff. So my question is, let's maybe as a board reapprove it. It goes to the board, the whole list. Unless somebody has a,
Can we ask the Army Corps if we can do some of the legwork, like do an H&H study on the tunnel? And maybe,
Burn, they already said we could do it.
but what I'm saying is, if they hire someone to do an H&H study on the tunnel for the Columbus Park, the open channel, the open channel, are we gonna spend money on this? And then the Army Corps says, we don't want this study or something, or, and then they're gonna start doing it themselves, you know what I mean? Should we ask them to, if we can do the H&H study while we're waiting for the PP, the
PPA.
agreement, the PPA?
I have another point that I'd like to make regarding this, because I think we're getting ahead of ourselves. The Corps has come back to say that the $84 million project, which was funded, now needs to be raised to 125 million, and that needs to go through Congress. I think we need to get an answer from the Corps. What happens if we don't get the 124 million and they're paring it back to 84? And we're basing the Ward Avenue Bridge on a number that we don't really know what it should be. I think we really need to have a sit down with the Corps and find out exactly where we are and what we can do.
If
And
I,
I
if I
think
can, Peggy, if I can, actually at the last work session where Bethany was present, I spoke with her afterwards, and that was my exact question: is what happens between the 120 and 88 million granted? Is there a possibility that we may end up having to pick and choose, or is there going to be a classification in terms of projects that will go forward
they will
and
pick
those that we may
choose.
have to lose? She was willing to come back and obviously speak to us as a board. I would encourage, I think that should be priority number one for 2024. Have Bethany come back with our newly composed
I think we should
flood
go
mitigation
down.
committee.
I think we should go
And-
down and meet with as many of the Army Corps people as possible.
I mean,
Because I
Bethany
think
said-
this is something that could definitely come back and bite us, and I think we need to know what we're getting into. And
Bethany actually said that she was willing to speak to the town or to the village on a monthly basis. It's in the, it's in the notes. And, you know.
and come and
who's gonna-
speak to us
who's-
and come.
Yeah, I
No,
mean,
I think
who's
we,
gonna set that up? Actually, I invited her to come today.
I think
Yeah.
we need to schedule time with Bethany, with Paul Tumanello, with all of the people, all of the players. Because we've sent lists of questions to Bethany over the years and we don't get answers.
I mean, the question is, does that come from us? Does that come from the village manager's
I
department?
think we-
My question for you is your question of the two projects that we have identified, if we have the agreement signed, are you saying you are afraid the Army Corps will come back and essentially say, well, those aren't in the scope of like our project because the money?
we
didn't
don't
come
know.
down?
You know,
Is that the
what
question?
happens if they
If-
come back and say, we can only do X?
Mhm.
And something's going to have to go in the original plan and we're going to need to rejigger it. And
So you're saying like if it comes down, like we start these projects, they get funded and then they come to us 6 months later and say like, these aren't in our scope of our plan.
we need to find
Or,
out.
or they
everything
just,
before
they
we
just
move
didn't get the
forward.
money from Congress. That's a possibility, especially, you know,
I think we need
politics.
to know all of
But
this before we put shovels in the ground.
I
That's all.
understand that. I just understand like that, even, I know they're going back to Congress to get funding. The county has already set aside their share. I've spoken with Catherine and I know they increased their amount, I think at least for this budget, from 17, million to 21. So I think that money is already set aside. So I am firmly understanding from my conversations that we can use that money. I know that is only a piece of the larger Army scale of funding, but
Originally, when we
Correct.
did, no, when we did this, when they came to us with the original project,
Yep.
they didn't even want to keep the Anita Lane Bridge. They wanted to
Yep.
take it out. The neighbors
and that should be completed on the
were
county.
concerned, so
Yeah.
they left it back in. But
Yep.
what happens if they give us the entire funding for the Anita Lane Bridge, but now because we have less money to do the rest of the project, they're going to start paring back parts of the project which were even more key
Mhm.
to helping the project. As we
And-
see, the Ward Avenue Bridge still has clearance when the Anita Lane Bridge doesn't, when Halsted doesn't. I just think we need to be very specific with the Corps to say, what are all the ramifications?
I mean, again, if you want Bethany in there, who's an inviter? I mean, I invited her to come here today.
I think
Yeah.
that needs to
So,
go to the village
Rather
manager.
than hypothecating and assuming, I think the best thing, and I don't think we should wait, spend any more time thinking of the different scenarios. We should merely schedule a meeting so we can address these concerns. Because for many that are still sitting on the board now from back in 2017, those are some of the issues that really almost divided our community. And we were able to really cohesively work on a collective basis so that the interest as a whole, not one neighborhood over another, because this is a perfect storm where neighbor versus neighbor, have and have nots. So, but we're hypothecating. So the best thing is let's just simply invite her so that we could, or as many people as we can, and get to the bottom of it. So we know what we're discussing.
I think the best course of action is for us to, and Minnie, correct me if I'm wrong, suggest to the board that we think the proper course of action is for the village manager to arrange a meeting with the core, at the core, for as many of us who can make it or can zoom in. And we request the entire project staff be at the meeting, not just Bethany.
Well, we've done it before. We went to the city on
We've
several
been really
occasions.
successful with it, Andrew, haven't we?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Can
yes.
can we give them a set of questions beforehand so we can kind of get some answers, or are we gonna go there?
Oh, yeah, Bernie, yes, that's part of
questions,
it.
And
That's
then they're
part of
gonna
it,
say, all right,
yes.
call us in a month.
No, we can, Bernie.
No, we were there, real time.
Tired to get answers.
Okay. Well, maybe we should work up some like important questions like money and, stuff like that. And what happens in this scenario and that. I'm sure they're not gonna come up with any fast answers, but at least we can give them some in advance.
I mean, there's other things if you look through the 40 points that were on there from the last meeting. I mean, it was the whole thing about the Water Resource Development Act request, just, whose responsibility is that? There was about, again, the open channel, they still haven't approved that.
And we
You know?
also had requested tweaking the project
Right.
in a number of different places and still haven't gotten an answer from them as to the
Peggy,
feasibility.
Peggy, what did you say? Peggy, I lost you. I'm sorry.
Projects, Andrew, that we still haven't gotten an answer from them on, that we sent 2 years ago?
And also the whole thing about the needing of the sign off for us to even start doing work. They still haven't done that yet. I mean, that's the first thing we need before we start doing
And do we
anything.
have their drawings,
But
their design?
talking about the tweaking, we have to be realistic with the tweaking because they move at a snail's pace. We have to try to maybe tweak where the project is. We can't say that we're gonna tweak the project and we go to the Harbor Heights and then we tweak it up there.
No, we've suggested to the core 4 different sections of the project we'd like them to look at when they're doing the design.
Okay, that's fine. I
And
just don't, I
we just
wanna
haven't
be,
gotten
I wanna
any kind
tweak
of
what,
feedback.
yeah, I wanna tweak their plan, not
That's what we did,
something
Bernie,
that's,
but we haven't had any kind of response from them since we submitted that 2 years ago.
okay,
Hey,
that's fine.
if I can, I'm stepping off for a minute, and I just want to welcome our newest members. Peggy, welcome back.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to continue serving on this board. I'm going to try to circle back and jump back in a few moments. You guys still have a quorum, correct? You're, I can't hear you.
Yes.
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 Okay, cool. All right, so I'm gonna try to circle back before you guys conclude. And look forward to, I know that a memo was sent to the Industrial Advisory Business Coalition for their participation in flood mitigation, so that, again, more knowledge is power. The more people that are involved, the better, regardless of where you may be located in the village. So hopefully there are people that are either in attendance at Village Hall or joining virtually. But looking forward to 2024, folks.
And Andrew and I also talked about maybe just us having a joint meeting with the industrial group. So
That's
And we
certainly-
appreciate that. Really appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. So
So,
everybody,
Stay on the ACE.
Andrew,
Sam,
just,
yeah.
Andrew, before you go, if you don't mind, the board agreed to the configuration of a Manny, a Stephen, and the village manager as the official committee to meet with the Army Corps. So I think that maybe I don't know, do we just go around that? I don't know how we do it, but that,
I don't think, I thank you for bringing that up, Tony. We don't go around anything. I think that, full disclosure, we talk about what the best mechanism. I do believe, I humbly respect, whether it's Peggy, myself, or Tony, you're part of that. I think that somebody who was part of the DC, New York City, 2017 expedition should definitely be part, because there's institutional knowledge that comes along with that. I think that the individuals you made reference to are more than capable and competent to achieve whatever needs to be done. But I do think that, whether it's you, Peggy, myself, someone has to participate who does have that sort of institutional background and direct experience. So it's not, well, I heard, I thought, no, I was there. And so there's a historical context, not for argumentative or combative purposes, but just for the institutional sort of background. So again, I didn't hear who you said, Tony, but as long as you, Peggy, myself, or at least somebody who was there back in 2017 is part of that sort of coalition. But no, we need to be transparent, cooperative with our elected officials, our hired officials, whatever needs to be done.
Tony,
That's my opinion.
when we went down to the core, was it 14 or 15, Andrew? I don't remember the first time. We went down a few times.
15, Peggy.
It's a group of us. I mean, it was 3 or 4 people from the committee. It was the village manager. It was the mayor. There was quite a large group.
It was productive.
Meeting.
It wasn't argumentative. It wasn't combative. It wasn't not productive.
And communicative.
Exactly. So I don't think it's a matter of numbers. I'm sorry, Peggy, for over talking. I apologize. It's not a matter of. It's not a matter of. It wasn't a matter of. Oh, we're going to be combative, because listen, the last community that was combative and difficult and impossible to deal with got stage left. We went to the next level of Washington, which was great. But I agree, if we're able to increase that number slightly, again, not to be intimidating or to be combative, but just knowledge, experience, and having that background would be ideal.
So Andrew, what I was saying was that the current village legislation is kind of that the Army Corps Committee is the village manager, the chair of the flood committee, and the liaison to the flood committee. So if we want to do something different, maybe we should put that in writing to the board, that here our current recommendation is a downtown meeting with the Army Corps, with some old members and some new members.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I know Jerry was trying to expand it, but I think more people who are in the village. Gino, I think, was one person who wanted to come on,
That makes sense.
and
Gino and the mayor, those are the 2 people we want to add.
what was that?
Gino and the mayor.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 people we're gonna add.
I think people who have been down there and who have dealt with these people before should also be included. I think that's wise.
Yeah, I have no problem including more people. I mean, if because I think the
more
more the better, but,
Guys,
good.
I'm going to go stage left quickly. Thank you. Happy New Year, everybody. Tony, feel better. Steve, congratulations. Everyone, welcome. And I'll see you all on 24 if I don't see you later on this evening.
Yeah, I think, maybe,
Bernie, that's
go
something.
ahead, Bernie.
Tony knows my feeling about this, and it's just a concern. That we should definitely ask if we start the ball to roll. Are we gonna speed this up, or is it gonna be slower than waiting for them, for the Army Corps? That's my only
I think
concern.
that's a question that needs to be asked, because none of us know.
So do we take on this task and start with this whole process, and then we don't get started until 2026, and they're gonna get started in 2025? That's my only concern. And then the other question is, do we invite the DEC to this Army Corps meeting that we want to try to set up? You don't think so?
In
So
the past,
Bernie,
it's been the Corps.
DEC is invited. Their county and DEC come to every Army Corps meeting, from what I've
Oh,
seen,
okay.
in general. But
All right.
If the Corps wants to invite them, they'll invite them.
Okay.
I think at this point, Manny, what do you?
No, I mean, we need to invite the DEC if we're gonna take this, if Mamaroneck's gonna take on some of this
But I don't
project,
think we
they
should
have
do
to be
anything
involved.
Until we're clear as to what the ramifications
Yeah.
are.
So Manny, at this point, I mean, I think we've talked about this, a good amount. What do you think is, what is the next step that we should do? Do you think, from a board of trustees?
To me, this just sounds like delay. Like, I just want the agreement to get signed so then we can begin doing any project. I just think that should be the focus from all of us, and all of us on this committee here, all of us on the board, is get that agreement signed. And then when we know that, then we can go and figure out what projects have the blessing for us to go do. I know we identified two.
Yeah.
If we want to stop and wait for the agreement to sign and then go to the Army Corps and say, these are the projects we identified that we would do. Do you anticipate these being out of the scope of the work? And then we can go from there. But I just think if we wait and we just try to and speak to them before, then that's just delaying this agreement getting signed, us being able to do any type of work. And I don't want any of that to be.
Why
delayed.
can't we do both at the same time? Request the meeting with the Corps and request that this document be
I
signed.
will let you know that Sharon and I have already requested a meeting with the Corps, so we have not heard back. We've emailed them just before the holiday, so we've already made the requested that meeting. But I'm just focused on
I
getting
think
the
we should
agreement
do
signed.
both at the same time.
And so we already kind of are, but
Yep.
my focus is really getting the agreement signed because I want a project to start. Like I don't want any more delay with this.
All right, so as a board, can we say that we would like the Board of Trustees to pursue the agreement being signed and the scope of the project to be those two projects, or, I mean, how would you?
I think we need to really hear back from them,
To
the
understand.
ramifications, so,
If we do two projects, if they're gonna come back and say like, those aren't.
or
those
if
are
we don't get the funding, what the ramifications are. I think we need to really know all of that before we put any shovels on the ground, so
Alright.
I think we can request both of them at the same time.
Okay, so as a board, do we, so on the request from the FMAC to the board, two parts. One is that we request that there is we pursue a written agreement and we pursue the scope of what the projects will be. So is that how we want to?
I think it should be the partnership agreement be signed. And at the same time, we would like to request an in-person meeting with the Corps, and it's more than just Brittany. It has to be all the players at the Corps, plus FMAC members, village staff members, as we've done in the past.
And everyone, at the October 26th meeting, we went through these 6 projects with the Army Corps. And they didn't put it in writing, but they basically said they wouldn't stop us from doing the 6 projects that I have here under item B, 1B.
But then we found out that there's an issue with money afterwards or at the same time. So I think that needs to be clarified.
Oh,
So-
yeah, absolutely. It has to be in writing, Peggy. That's why.
And all of this needs to be clarified.
Yeah, absolutely. And in writing.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, so let's vote on that. All in favor? Aye. Tony?
Aye.
All right, ayes have it. We'll write something up.
Do you
and
want
send
us
over.
to start emailing each other our ideas in the next week or two of questions we'd like to start preparing for the Corps?
I would like you to please email those to me, because I want to have those because I
No,
can
so
go.
we can get them as a group
Yes.
together
Oh,
first.
yeah, and I think you should just designate one person to kind of compile them. Get them
Oh,
in
you
one
can
list
send
of
them to me.
doc and then
Right,
send them.
it's up to you.
Yeah, send it to me.
Okay.
I'll do that.
So everybody on the committee should send Steve within the next 2 weeks, questions for the ACE.
Yeah, and I have some already here, so I'll send, I'll send those out to everybody. Which are based on just the memo,
Mhm.
which aren't even based on what we were talking about. So I mean, there's questions
We have to
just off the
broaden it.
memo.
We have to broaden it.
Yeah, so.
Yep.
Okay, I think, we did want to talk about our goals individually. So if everybody, wants to do that for 2 or 3, I guess right now Peggy and, and Patty, if you want to spend a couple of minutes on that, if you have anything to say?
On my goals for this,
Yes.
I think we just need to start doing things. And I'm so done with studies, and I think that this is a great start. If we don't have the agreement signed, we can't do anything. And Peggy's dead on with, number one, we need to know what happens if that gap of money isn't filled. And I think the other part of that is, which she touched on, was what if we can't get an increase, what's gonna come out of the project? Is it going to be one of these items that we've listed here, one of these 6 items? If it is, then we can't do them without alternate funding in place.
Mhm.
So it really is, the core meeting has to happen first. Even regardless of whether we have this agreement or not. The core meeting has to happen so we can see what we can ask for if they're still even part of the project. What I'd like to see us return the cameras that we have and get river gauges. If we want to get other cameras, I'm sure something much simpler can be used. Right now, we have no cameras. And honestly, from what I see, at least in the Washingtonville neighborhood that I'm in, everybody is very helpful with going around. Bernie will go around and look at a river. The Abadis will go around looking at the rivers, the O'Connor will do that. It's a good system. However, it really should be a village system that everybody knows.
And a reporting system so that it'll automatically go to the Corps and it'll automatically go to the county and the state.
And it'll automatically maybe send out an alert to people, hey, another inch and you're getting flooded. That would help. Wouldn't that help? You just look out your window, you can see.
I don't need that.
I can't see the river. I depend on Bernie to say, hey, I'm getting flooded, you're next.
Sure. And maybe it's river gauges in places that we haven't thought about.
Absolutely. I
Wait,
think,
can I ask, can I interrupt just one
Of
question?
course.
So I hear the piece of river gauge. I think that that's already something you are looking into, because I know the cameras aren't a big fan of many people.
it's not
it-
that they're a big, that they're
No, no, I
not a big fan, they're really not helping.
I
And
hear
they're not,
you.
if they're not on, it's kind
I hear you.
of senseless.
It's a waste of money if they don't function properly.
My question is, was for both of you, because I know you're mentioning river gauges, but in other places, what are those other places? Like, I don't want to be the one to, or to have the board just be like, all right, these are the locations. Like, I want to know, what are those other locations besides the kind of obvious kind of choke points?
Well, I think they are the obvious places,
So
the choke
is-
points and where it's coming down
Okay.
into Mamaroneck.
And I think we should do a river walk as a
I agree.
committee, and then we can make
Determine.
recommendations of where we think
Right.
choke points are.
I think that's more what I'm looking for, just so I can have a better understanding
Yep.
of, like, okay, I know the location where I think we all kind of understand the location where they absolutely should be. What are the other locations?
Right.
And I just think like you guys, like you've been on this committee since its inception, and like you may have a better idea of like, like, I know this area, like when we had that walk in Harbor Heights, like, you're like here, like we need something, something might need to be up there, like I want to have that other extended
Sure.
list.
Also, staying on what I think is important, I don't see it on the simple plan, so I guess it's not so simple anymore, but one of the things that Tony has talked about since the moment I met him are pumps. And I think if you take a look at it, most of our problem ends up at the confluence. Columbus Park becomes flooded and it just backs up everywhere. We won't get flooded if Columbus Park doesn't get flooded, because that's where our river
That's where
goes, our
backup
brook
comes from.
goes out to.
Mhm.
So I think that that's something that should be on a hot plate, of trying to get the water out of, let's face it, I think we can do pumps quicker than the Army Corps is ever gonna come to Mamaroneck. It's taken how many years?
I mean, with the pumps,
2007.
Jerry was actually asking for more information about them, just within the last month, so.
It's not just the pumps, it's
That's very
the
important.
conveyance from the pumps to the sound, that's the question.
Yeah, how was it gonna get
How
there?
are you gonna get that water out?
Well, I think that if you can get it past and under those bridges with pumps, with hoses, with whatever pipes, I don't know exactly how they work.
I think the
You can't go.
They can't go
hoses are gonna have to go underground.
No, I met with Tony. I remember Tony kind of mentioned and spoke with me about the pumps about a year ago. And from my understanding, when he was explaining to me, it's like the pumps, essentially, there's one underground, but there's also like a slab or platform that would be placed.
Right.
That would kind of have to essentially shoot the water under the bridge, and there would have to be another one to kind of go and move it and just keep moving the other direction. So I just think that's my understanding, like how the pumps essentially would operate.
Oh, I definitely think it should help.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
When you put the pumps on,
Mhm.
I happen to be an expert with pumps. If you put the pump on, everyone's thinking you got to go under the water. They build troughs, you hang them on the troughs. It's only gonna be temporary till they fix the problem. You go underneath the bridges, go to the pictures, you see you got space. You can hang them under the bridges. You get some welders, put up some steel beams, hang them on the steel beams. Get them as far down the river as you can. It's a 16-inch pipe. That's what it is. If you have two pumps, you got two 16-inch pipes, or you draw one big one. You put a 32-inch pipe all the way down to the harbor.
I think that's kind of
Very simple.
hydrological information we need from somebody to tell us
How to do it.
what, not just the pumps themselves, but the conveyance that's going to the harbor, how that would
Yeah.
would work.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about pumps a lot in the past, and I think, but one thing we haven't done actually is actually pass a resolution to present that to the Board of Trustees. So I think
We need more information.
that's something, we need somebody to study it. Because I mean, anything that
Okay.
we do,
I mean, we can't do that.
no, we can't.
we're
It's not my point, so.
Tony has,
Tony has-
we meet
yeah.
with the company and they have the information.
Yeah, but it's still, until we get until we get a professional to come down and really do everything they need
Somebody
to do.
needs to see it
That's
on,
what Tony did. He got a company that does that or someone that.
Tony, could you just tell us, what you've done with the pumps with the company?
Well, the company is in Florida. They make what they call submersible pumps. So the idea is that they would go right before the Plaza Bridge there, right? The pumps. As our resident there said, from the outlet of the pump in the water, it goes through like a 24-inch diameter pipe, hangs under the railroad bridge, hangs under Halsted, and then goes down the river a ways, right? So my calculations show that two 25,000 gallon per minute pumps will lower 50 acres, 7 feet in 24 hours, right? So I had the pump company's engineer come up here. We walked through it. I walked through, I think it was with Gino and Jerry, to show them everything. I guess what I'm thinking now, and the reason I didn't put it on my simple plan list, is that I think that if we could get that open channel in within the next year, it would do as much as the pumps.
the culvert, you mean, the open culvert?
Yeah, the not the tunnel, but the open.
The open culvert,
Yeah,
yeah.
the open culvert, right. So I'm thinking that if the board would say, okay, let's have this thing signed with the Army Corps, let's do the H&H study, and let's lay this thing out basically. You don't have to go nuts, open it up, 20 feet, 5 feet wide, I think it is, by 390 feet long, right? Open that up, put 2 big culverts under the road there, and now you've got that bypass in. So I think that if we could really expedite that, because the pumps are going to take some time, right? You're going to have to probably go before DEC, and but if we had done the pumps 2-3 years ago, they'd be in by now. But I'm feeling right now, get this PPA signed and get this open channel, get a backhoe in there and open it up, right? And let the water come through that parking lot.
You
I
don't
think
think
if
that
you-
would have to go through the DEC for those,
And the Army Corps,
and the Army Corps?
without a doubt.
I mean, how
And
about
the
this?
Army
How
Corps
about we,
hasn't designed it yet.
how about we just have parallel studies? You'd study both.
All right, so if you want to get us, and then like.
Time out. I have a question though, Tony. When you've got space under the Ward Avenue Bridge. But when we have a really big storm, there's no space under the Halsted Avenue Bridge, and there's certainly no space under the Anita Lane Bridge.
Right,
How are
so-
these pipes gonna hang there if,
When you flush your toilet, it's under the ground, the pipe's under the ground.
but we're not talking about pipes
Okay,
underground.
but if you got the water, it's raised above the thing, the pumps are still pumping. The
If,
pumps are
even if,
still pumping.
even if the pipe,
It's under the water.
correct me if I'm wrong, Tony. If the pipe is on the riverbed and the water inside of the pipe is traveling faster than what's in the river, that water's gonna go out faster than what the river can get it out, right?
So the theory of these pumps is that they're big enough so that they go on as the kind of lake there starts rising. They keep up with the increase in water, and so you never get more than a 3 or 4 foot rise. So it doesn't ever get to the height of the Halsted Avenue beam or the top of the Anita Lane Bridge.
Do you
or
have
the
info
water-
on this you can share with us, Tony?
I can share the pictures of the pumps, the
Nothing that, from the engineer that you walked with?
I can show you the diagram that we have of showing the possible locations. I
Yes,
can
please.
show you they had a pro forma quote of what the pumps would cost. Yeah, I can share.
That would be great. Thank you.
Is there a narrative of what the pumps would do, like you were just speaking of, Tony? That the
Well-
water would never go above a certain amount? Or is
Not-
there any narrative to
no,
that effect?
Patty, if we want to get an engineering review of this, then we'd have to get that done because, you know, and yeah.
Get a grant.
I'll circulate what I have to the committee.
Do that and
and-
then we regroup on this next month? Does that
Sure,
make sense?
that's fine.
Sure.
And it could also go under the Halsted Avenue Bridge, but go over the Anita Bridge, you know, out of the water. I mean, the pump can go down and it can go up. It's not like you need gravity.
I just
there's a
think
lot of
we're not
things-
engineers, somebody who's an engineer
Yeah,
should.
yeah, that's what I was saying.
You don't need to be an engineer to know that the pump is, you can send the water up and send it straight down. It's a
Listen,
pump.
at the end of the day, unless it's a real study, this isn't gonna happen.
No, I don't think we should wait on the pumps. I think it should be done all at once.
I'm just
You know,
suggesting for us to all read through it and see,
Well,
but
we should talk to the ACE and do the pumps and, you know, not say we're gonna do one and not the other and then sit around. Let's do it all. It all needs to be done.
I mean-
I don't think you gotta go to Florida to get it. You can go right here in Harrison, leave pumps to get it. A pump that puts 50,000 gallons of water a minute. Do the math.
Yeah, well,
maybe we should ask Gino to look into this.
I know Gino, as I said, Gino, I think, Jerry was asking Gino questions about it.
Well, maybe we should ask Gino to come to our next meeting and speak about it.
Okay.
What do you think?
Look at it.
Good idea.
I do want to just go back to the, you know, just to the, you know, what I would call low hanging fruit, the gauges. I mean, I think we all agree that we should have gauges with some kind of cameras. Do we want to vote on that and
Yes.
make a recommendation?
Mhm.
Okay, all right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Uh,
all right, so we'll present that over to the board.
Yeah, I think
Stephen,
it's already, I think I don't remember, Leilani might have added before our last meeting, but I think we were already discussing gauges. I think so.
Can't hurt to
Yeah.
just
We
put it
already
there,
have,
yeah.
but that, you know, your additional support is always great.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we were already
So-
talking about gauges, because I know, like, we've had a
Can't
lot of
hurt.
discussions about the camp.
Can't hurt.
So,
Anything to add, Peggy, for your goals?
Yeah,
or-
my goal is really, we've talked about this since 2007.
Mhm.
Low hanging fruit, medium hanging fruit, and high fruit. And I really think there are things that we can do as per the memo that I circulated.
Yeah.
To get started, and I would be happy to take
Okay.
that on myself with, I know Patty, you want to work on low hanging fruit with me and we can try and get a list of absolute
Yeah.
projects. that
I
we-
added some to it.
Yeah, I saw that.
As well, so
But
how about we come up with another, a more expanded low hanging fruit,
And-
and then we'll just send it right over, and this way everything is on
because
there.
these are things that
Yeah.
the village can do and we can get these things moving very quickly. And I think there's county money for certain things. We're foolish not to start doing that. So
Yeah.
I'll be happy. Patty,
Okay,
you want to
so,
work on that?
yeah, all right, so why don't we just finalize that list for the next meeting? We'll give it to the, board, we vote on it, give it to the Board of Trustees,
Great,
and then, get it moving on it.
great.
Bernie,
If I may,
oh, sorry,
can we stop sharing?
oh, okay, Tony, if you can stop sharing the screen?
sure.
I think some people like to see us.
And I think we should also low hanging fruit first, but then medium.
Yeah.
And high hanging fruit
Yeah, we can
as
give,
well.
we can give all the fruit types.
Well, but I think we can be doing different things.
Yeah, I agree.
So we can do a multiple suggestion.
Yeah, that's fine. I think having them all, because a lot of this stuff we already approved, so I think just having it
Yep.
all in one list
In
will
one
be helpful to
list. Yep.
everybody.
Okay,
Bernie,
goals?
goals and your plan.
Goals is quick. ACE, reservoir dam, pumps.
Actually, you know what? You could email your pictures to Tony and he could put them up if you want to do that real quick.
He has I have.
Oh,
the
okay.
email.
Yeah, Tony, why don't you put up Bernie's pictures, and share the screen on them if you can while Bernie,
What
I
about my
have a
pictures
packet.
too?
Huh?
You got
What about the
one.
ones I sent?
You pack it with you.
you have to send them to Tony because I can't
Okay,
access them.
Thank you.
too
unfortunately.
late now.
Yeah.
Want this
Computer, okay.
You can do by, you have your email? You can send it to-
Yeah, email.
Okay.
Is this for me? Is this a gift?
Yeah, that's a gift.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
So let's talk about the reservoir. This is a restoration project of the reservoir. Because, the reservoir is overgrown and it's silted up.
I'm sorry, Bernie, when you say the reservoir, do you mean immediately behind the dam or on the far side of,
The whole reservoir. and
all the way
behind
up to
dam,
Sac,
too.
all the way up to the
Dam
hutch?
is included because there's so much silt in front of
It's
it.
everything up to the hutch.
So GHD did the study of the dam. The Army Corps has looked at this whole project of the dam and the reservoir. They ruled it out because it costs too much money. The Army Corps proposed to do a few things that which were gonna be 10 times more than doing the dam and the reservoir, which was raising Mamaroneck Avenue, parts of the Hutch and Union Avenue. And I don't know if Tony wants to take credit for it, but I was speaking with Tony about ideas of the reservoir. He was talking about a retaining wall to hold more capacity in the reservoir. I don't know if that's enough capacity to hold for 100-year flood. Because they have to raise, I believe they have to raise the dam 15 more feet. And
they
that
have to
means
rebuild
that
it.
means the reservoir has to
Yes.
be,
A new dam.
It had to be a brand new dam.
yes, a new dam. And then raise the reservoir's retaining walls. Oh, I'm sorry. The Corps wanted to raise Mamaroneck Avenue 21 feet or approximately that, 21 feet. The whole length of Mamaroneck Avenue which is 8,009 feet to raise it up. So not to have the reservoir overflow and go into the office buildings. So that's the problem. So they wanted to raise Mamaroneck Avenue up and raise the hutch up. So as I was talking to Tony, he was saying something about a concrete retaining wall. And I said, well, why don't we just put a levee on 3 sides of the reservoir and around where the dam is? With the new technologies in levees and the advancement in levees, you can get a levee that's steeper and less narrow than piling a bunch of dirt up, where you have it, where it's a big mountain and it goes out. And it takes up more capacity in the reservoir, which we don't want. We have the money Catherine Parker got the money for the reservoir to do a study on the reservoir, whether it's SLR or GHD or some other company. We need to ask the questions, based on scenarios. If all, in a perfect world, if all of that soil is taken out, which is overgrownness, I sent you guys a video of the reservoir that was in 1960 compared to it now. And it's night and day. So, I'd like to ask some scenario questions to whoever does this study. If they were to remove and make it wider and take all the stuff that has accumulated over the last 60 years, if we were to take that out, first of all, how much more capacity will it gain? And does that mean that the dam has to be 15 feet higher? Maybe it's only 10 feet higher. And then the levee becomes lower. And
you'll be able
better.
to access the valves on the dam, so you'll be able to lower the
Well,
profile of the
I'm
river.
not
In
even-
addition,
I'm talking about a new dam that's, look, the GHD couldn't even find the valves on the dam. They couldn't even find the handle.
Westchester Joint Waterworks has the plans. Jerry has seen them. Because I was with him.
But Peggy.
I'm
that
telling
dam's
you, Bernie, they
100 years
exist.
old. I doubt that those valves even work. And are you gonna spend $1 million on something that
Well,
not
it's
gonna
gonna
do
be
it?
part of the desilting anyway. When you take all of that silt out of there, you'll be able to access them and see if they're usable or not.
No, but the valves are in the.
Let's just focus on,
the gatehouse.
let's just go back to the levy plan, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so by doing that, instead of raising up Mamaroneck Avenue and raising the hutch, I think the price would be cut in half compared to what the Army Corps came up with.
That will never happen.
What do you mean?
Raising Mamaroneck Avenue, raising.
No, that's what I'm saying.
What's?
Instead of
plan
raising
B?
Mamaroneck Avenue, why don't we just build a levee on 3 sides of the reservoir and hold it what's in the reservoir now, so you can have more capacity in the reservoir. Instead of raising Mamaroneck Avenue, you put a couple pumps on the east side of Mamaroneck Avenue for the drainage of, for Mamaroneck Avenue, so you can pump it back up, because if the reservoir is full and the Mamaroneck Avenue is down here, you have to get that water that drains out into there. I'm sure they can do it with some kind of a pump system to not have Mamaroneck Avenue flood.
The question is, who is the proper entity to do this study?
Well, that's the question. Is it gonna be SLR? Is it gonna be GHD? They have the money.
I think it's up to the Board of Trustees who they want to have do any engineering study, so I don't think we should have to worry about
We
that.
were not happy with the SLR.
Oh, we weren't, but I
so-
think we have to just be more involved
Well,
with the
you weren't
specifications.
involved in that.
Yeah,
You
we-
were not involved in that.
Yeah.
I asked SLR to look into the reservoir, and he nodded, okay. And they had other people doing that, and I said, oh, okay, and then I was told that let the experts do their expertise, but if they don't know what to do, if you build a house and you tell them that you want a bathroom here or the garage on this side, if you don't tell him that, he's gonna put it wherever he wants to put
I
it.
think we could solve this easily. Let's have a memo, to the board, a motion. Please include FMAC with any studies that are being done to any parts of the village. I think that should be, I think this way we get that seat at the table and we could provide our knowledge to each of these studies, and I think that's important. And I think if we say that to the board, that we'd like to be, we request to have somebody, a board member, the whole FMAC, talk to people, the right engineering firm, before these studies actually get started.
Yeah,
So I
okay.
think we could leave it, at least do what we can and ask for that to happen. So do you think we could propose that? Is everybody for something like that?
Yeah, well, they have to pick who they're gonna hire.
But after they pick it, let us sit
Well,
down with them.
let me ask a question. If Catherine Parker is getting the funding for the study, is this now a county study?
It
And
could
do
be,
we
it
need to
could be,
then ask for
that I'm
input
not
through-
sure.
Well, it would seem to be. So then do we then need to say to Catherine, we'd like to be maintained throughout this study to have input and to communicate with whomever you choose?
I was under the understanding that it was gonna be county money given to us, and then we were gonna do all the, all the
I think we
legwork.
need to clarify that.
Well, we could ask her.
But I think regardless whether it goes to the village, we ask to be informed and stay in the loop of the project, or it goes to the county.
Agreed.
Okay.
All right, so do we want to have a motion, that, please include FMAC with any study that's to be done?
And to be consulted throughout the
Yeah, and
project.
to be consulted throughout. Agreed, everybody?
Mhm.
Yes.
All right, great. We'll put that as another thing that we'll have to do, that we asked for.
Do you write do you have where do you, I feel like you're such a great advocate. You have so many really good questions. Do you have one spot where you're putting all of them?
I'm sorry?
Like, do you have one spot where you're putting like all of your questions?
On the dam.
Like on the dam, because I feel like you have such great ideas. You're such a big advocate for like, we need a new dam and you have all these wonderful ideas. I just want one place where all the questions that you have are. So then I can so then if like I'm in conversation, you guys aren't in them, I can like, well, this came up in FMAC. I want to be able to have things ready so that like you guys aren't in a
Okay,
conversation.
I'll get a list of, I can
can
get a
do
list
that.
of questions. Yeah,
Please.
that's
And
fine.
if we
Yeah.
have a
They're
flood czar,
scenario
that
questions,
person should
though.
have that
Yeah,
information, because that's who's
exactly.
gonna be at the meeting.
Yeah.
Exactly, but
With all
I
due
think for the
respect.
time being, it's like if I'm in
Yeah.
a conversation, I want to be able to go and advocate
Yeah.
for you
And
guys.
Keno
the
should have
community.
it, and
Exactly.
Jerry should have it.
But please, because I think you have so.
I'll give you a list.
I
I'll give you a
love,
list.
yeah, exactly.
Not yet doing the study.
They didn't start it. Catherine got the money for it, and it's gonna happen for this specific area,
Reservoir.
the reservoir.
There was a couple of questions I have for that, and one is, if the water is high, if it's a 100-year, is it gonna be like a 100-year levy or a 500-year?
They're looking at 100-year
Okay,
They should be
Sure.
looking at more than that.
benefit to cost ratio.
Did you see the pictures of the dam in the storm 2 Mondays ago? The water was overtopping the dam.
Was it, I saw the
It
picture.
was, it was going through the slats on the
Yeah,
top.
that's what the picture that Tony showed me. It went over the dam, but the flashboards were,
It was going through the
above, but
flat, it was going through
it
them.
was going through 'em. Well, the September one, I saw that it went
It went over.
over the flashboards.
Yes.
The
But we were pretty
water was
close.
over the flashboards
We
at
were
that
pretty
height.
close on a storm that was approximately 3 inches of rain.
The first one was 4, the second one was 3.
That doesn't make any sense.
That's what Jerry said.
I know, that doesn't make any sense.
The other thing about the other thing about the dam and the reservoir is that there's the debate on who owns it. Who's
WJW,
responsible?
WJWW owns it. The question is who's responsible to maintain it?
Well, America is responsible to maintain it.
The
But-
waterworks, the tri-municipality owns it. Or just Westchester Joint
No, just
Waterworks owns
joint
it.
West, joint, yeah,
WJWW owns it,
they own the dam.
correct.
Village is responsible for doing the maintenance. Now with the new regulations, the spillway is not long enough and it has to be extended. And those are the new regulations. So that was the question to the village attorney. What, Nora was asking the questions, what was going back and forth. So
We still don't have an answer.
so from what the village attorney was saying, he was feeling that Westchester Joint Waterworks is responsible to extend this spillway. So they're, I mean, it's either they want to spend the money because the regulations are different from now for 100 years ago, or they are responsible for the spillway. I feel very strongly that this dam cannot be decommissioned because it saved a lot of people the last couple of weeks.
Could you explain the spillway, what the spillway is?
The spillway is where it crests over the top.
Okay.
And it's not long enough. The dam is essentially, it's this long and it has to be longer.
Okay, so the spillway is
Needs to be wider.
the width of the dam.
Yeah, the width of the dam.
It needs to be taller and wider to really be effective,
Well, not necessarily
depending
tall.
on how much you dredge.
Yes, it has to go over the top. It has to be extended.
Okay, let's just go back to the levy project, because that's what we started with.
Yeah.
And, one point I made, privately was, it was, half the cost of the $150 million.
But that's just a guess.
Yeah, I know. I'm just
But-
saying, it's gonna be, if that is correct, it's gonna be about $400 million project. Just to be,
I don't
'Cause
think it's gonna be that much.
yeah, because, well, it's $150 million in $1977. And it's half of that 75
I know,
million.
but they wanted to raise up the hutch.
Yeah, I'm just saying though, if you, I mean,
That's why
how
we
much
need a
is raising
study
up
to
the
Yeah.
really find out what it will
Yeah.
That's a
cost, because we
major,
have no
that's
idea.
a major highway.
no, I'm saying like, listen, I think it isn't up to us how the money is spent. It is up to us to suggest the correct thing to do and let the village approve it.
The village or the
opposed to-
county.
And the county, and you guys figure out how to get the money. But I think it's up to us to suggest these things. So it doesn't scare me to propose something that's gonna be $400 million. It's just that's how much it's gonna be. Yeah.
No,
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know.
GHD
Mm.
said for a new dam, it would cost approximately 10
10
million.
million.
Mhm. Right.
I mean, if the
And
the
then you have to
reservoir,
dredge.
the levee, how much is the levee gonna be? It's soil. It's removing the soil that's in the reservoir,
So-
silt, and it's.
But then you have to pack it so that it can't go back into the river every time
Yes,
it
but
rains.
there's different advancements
Plant
to
it.
levees where there's, erosion things and different material that you
Yeah.
put inside as you build the levee up to get it steeper and higher.
Mhm.
And it doesn't do
There's no road
this.
back in.
Yeah,
So will the levee wall have to be 21 feet? Is that what you think? Because you were talking about the
Well-
road, if the road was supposed to be raised 21 feet, would the levee then have to be 21 feet?
well, that's what they were thinking, would be 21 feet.
Okay,
And you're saying this is for the
Now-
entire reservoir, Bernie?
I'm sorry?
I just wanna make sure I understand, is this, you
It's
mentioned. in
around the
beginning,
reservoir.
this is around the entire reservoir you're talking about, correct?
Yes. If
If you look at the
And
pictures,
that's,
yes.
you look at this one,
What page, Brian?
that's probably the best one.
Yeah.
Because that's the whole,
Yeah.
and then that's the entrance to Saxon Woods.
Exactly.
And then this is the hutch here.
Yeah,
So-
exactly.
Can you
And then
show us
these are going, yeah,
Sorry.
that's,
this one?
yeah,
yours?
this is it.
So all
and
the
then-
way up.
Yeah, all the way up to,
So it's going
Because-
all the way in Saxon Woods Park.
because if you look at a topographical map, I think the height between where it goes under Mamaroneck Avenue before it goes to the dam,
Mhm.
I think the difference between that point and where the hutch is, I believe it's only 8 feet or 9 feet difference. Median pitch from that, so
Pretty
So your
flat.
levies
it's
are,
pretty flat.
your levies are on both sides of Mamaroneck Avenue, and
No, one side of Mamaroneck.
what's the horseshoe on the dam side?
That's because,
You're calling them
because,
levy.
it's kind of, yeah, it would be both sides on that side. It would be both sides.
Yeah,
But
I think,
I was in the woods, when we went to the,
Behind the-
yeah, I saw that, I saw the.
yeah, is that
so-
pipe where you have already existence? I know there's some kind of underground channel over there somewhere.
No, because,
I mean, under the hutch, some kind of under the hutch channel
yeah,
already.
there's no pipes under any bridges, it just goes
Yeah.
under.
I know
but-
there's a path then under the hutches, something, I went hiking years ago. Is the river or something?
Yeah. Yeah. The Hutchinson River.
Yeah,
But those are for the drainage for the, for Mamaroneck Avenue.
Okay.
You know, the IBM buildings have to have detention ponds there, essentially.
You mean
Because
all those
that water
buildings?
comes off the hill, it has to go somewhere.
Yeah.
So if the reservoir level is higher than Mamaroneck Avenue, the water
It'll
from,
spill back there.
it's not gonna go this way, it'll go back into it, so there has to be some kind of a check valve there. And then it has to be pumped in.
yeah, I just wonder, like, if it's an over 100-year flood, there's like there's no place for the water to go. I mean, once it hits the levee, like, it has to be deep enough where,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah, because there's no other place for it to go. You can't pump it out.
250-year storm, because that's what,
But the
Ida was-
idea of the dam is to hold back as much water. And it's timing around here. I don't think it has to be held back for days upon days.
would there be some sort of a release system put in so that when the water starts to go down and it comes out more, or will that just be gravity?
They'll have to work the dam. They'll have to
It'll
do
have to
it.
be a workable dam.
Yeah, well, that's,
Yeah.
that's why with the valves, look, those valves there don't do anything.
Terry O'Neill, who's worked at WJWW, worked there for 40 years, said they are so simple. He's the one who told me about them and told Jerry about them. He said they are simple machines, they are easily repaired, and this could work.
They have one little 24-inch pipe at the bottom. There's one.
He told us there were two.
And he's gotta show me the other one.
They have
Because
the plans up there.
I was there the other day. There's only
Alright.
one that comes out there. There's one pipe that comes out. And it's one valve for a 24-inch pipe. That's why they cut the holes in the dam. You have to have that capacity at the bottom of the dam there.
They cut the holes because those things were by
No, I
then
know,
also
you
no
have to
longer
have pipes
working.
that big on the bottom of the dam that open and
All I'm saying
close.
is all of these things should be looked at.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think we got the plan. I think it's really a lot of good things here. And I think what we should do, I mean, this to me is like an alternative, like when I mentioned last month with the SLR problem, the problem with the SLR report, there wasn't alternatives for even what they did. They basically just said, buy houses, and that was, or bridge, build up a couple of, sides. So I think this belongs in one of the things that should be looked at when we look at the dam. And that's what I would like, when we look at the dam and look at the reservoir, I think this is one of the plans that we should have somebody look at. And is that something that we should vote on, that should be
Yeah.
part of anything? Could we do that?
And
think
I
we
would
should.
send
Yeah.
whomever, I would send the
I
board
sent the
this
board that.
picture.
Yeah.
You have.
Okay, so let's vote on,
Because people,
so let's vote on Bernie's plan, that it should be included in any H&H or any other study
Any
of the
study.
Yep.
reservoir and dam. So
Yep.
let's do that, and let's get on to the next thing,
Good.
right?
So we're gonna send that to the board.
All right, I just want to give everybody a quick dredging update, just from, just from kind of what's happened because I know there's been a couple of different,
Here's a question before you do. Do we need to formalize this and put that in a memo
Yeah.
to the board?
Yeah, so And when he's asking you to say like, can you guys vote on that? I'm assuming that you're gonna write it. down.
You're gonna write it up
Yeah,
and pass it
yeah,
down.
I'm just.
So it'll go to all of us before it
It's on
goes to the
Mr.
board.
Yeah.
No, yeah, as long, yeah.
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 Before we, actually, yeah, give your dredging update, 'cause I have questions for you guys, but, you know. But I want, no, give your dredging update.
Oh.
I mean, or I can give it, I mean, I think we have the
Oh,
same. thing.
okay, well, it's,
No, you
just-
did.
yeah, it's just a quick update, because I know there's been a lot of noise about what's happening with dredging. So this I got from Jerry. We, the village, dredged 1,400 cubic yards of spoils, and JT clearly removed over 700 cubic yards of spoils, which is the permit limit. We dredged 2,100 cubic yards of debris and spoils. Only a portion of these spoils have been tested and dumped. The other spoils will be tested and removed soon. They are sitting on Fayette right now. Our dredge permit for 10 years was reduced to 5 years by DEC when we applied.
Wait, not so fast, please.
Okay, sorry. It's in New York City in me. Not sure why, and we didn't argue at that time.
I just got on yesterday.
Yeah, the DEC only gave us approval to remove 700 cubic yards. And I could send all this to you, Peggy.
Okay,
During the first part, and we have applied for additional areas to dredge. We can only remove only specific material under our village US ACE permit, DEC permit. So we are capped out because we have removed everything we can under our maintenance approval.
tapped out for a year?
We just tapped out until we get additional permits. So that's from the village, Now, on the SLR report, it said that dredging will have a 0 flood reduction benefit. Additionally, SLR report suggests that dredging can have long-term negative environmental impacts due to the increased likelihood of promoting channel instability that can create an onset of wall failures and head cuts along the disturbed reaches. Now, from the web in general, about dredging, it does diminish some of the associated risks. Dredging is crucial to preserving the natural flow of a river and reduces the potential of a likely disaster from occurring in cities that are prone to reoccurring flood during rainy seasons. Preserving wildlife and ecosystems. Dredging helps ecosystems by removing trash, sludge, dead vegetation, and other debris. It keeps water clean, preserves local wildlife ecosystems, and remediates eutrophication, the excess of nutrients in the water due to runoff. On the negative side, dredging impacts marine organisms negatively through internment, habitat degradation, noise, remobilization of contaminants, sediment, and increases in suspended sediment concentrations. So I think everybody's up to date now with dredging in the village. I don't think we could comment on if we should or shouldn't dredge. I don't think any of us have that ability because, as you see, SLR disagrees with just some of the first 3 things I found on the web. So,
If I may, I
Yeah.
think we need to find out, when Jerry says we're capped out, how long are we capped out for? Is it a year? I think we need to understand that before we can make a decision on dredging.
yeah, and again, I don't know if it's our decision because experts disagree on it. So how could we make that decision on what to do with dredging?
When we have a flood czar, hopefully they'll be able to, we're not gonna be able to dredge probably for another year because the
Yeah.
permit's probably tapped out for a year.
Mhm.
But by then we'll probably have a flood person
Yeah.
on staff who will be able to better guide us.
So I think that's everything we know about dredging. I don't know if there's anything we could add to it, because I don't think, if the experts disagree, what could a bunch of guys here?
I think it was, it's misleading that they're saying they're dredging. I don't think they're dredging.
I think we all could
I
agree,
feel-
though, yeah, I think we all could agree that everything should be cleaned,
We need to have a
it should be
regular
clean.
maintenance
It's
cleaning
river
program.
maintenance, it's
Yes.
river maintenance, it's channel modifications. Dredging is what they did at the harbor. They got they're going there with the barges and scooping out and making it deeper. They're not doing that. SLR,
We're maintaining the natural
Yeah.
level, we're not expanding it.
look, these rivers don't look like rivers, normal rivers. They look like mud baths. That's not a normal river. A normal river has gravel and stones on the bottom. You don't see that stuff. The organisms don't live in the mud. They can't
Some
live in the
do,
mud.
yeah.
You can't, there's no, they live under rocks, organisms.
One of the things in the low hanging fruit that I had suggested
Yeah.
was a regular river maintenance program that every year catches a different section.
Yes.
Because we can't just keep going to the same 4 places. There are other places throughout the rivers that need to be addressed, and this should be a line item on the DPW's budget every year. And how they do it and what the proper terminology is,
Yeah.
we leave that up to them.
Well, that's a very good question. Why are we tapped out?
And
And
until when?
When are we going back?
Yep.
And if the village is gonna move the dredger to down at the harbor, which they said that they were tapped out. And they were moving down to the harbor, and then he was gonna come back and fix some other stuff. We need to know about that. We can't hear it on social media. They should put it out. It has to happen that second.
And Jerry.
I know, you know,
This was a memo from him, and could we write up something like, the FMAC backs a proposal for regular river maintenance?
And
as
could
a-
he please
as a-
explain when our tapped out
Yeah.
term is, how
Yeah.
long that will be,
Yeah,
and
what's-
with,
what's gonna
we have a
happen? We're tapped
5-year.
out for
We have a
5
5-year
years?
permit, and how much can we do each year?
I was told that it was gonna be a 10-year permit.
That's what it was supposed to. have
That's what
been.
it's supposed to be, they only want to put 5.
You know, and some of the, not you, but some of the other trustees don't like to hear the transparency word, but.
And
he-
what
there
happens-
needs to be transparency.
I think a legitimate question is, it was supposed to be a 10-year permit, why is it now only 5?
Well, yeah, exactly. You know. That has to be explained to us.
Right.
You know,
So
we don't know what's gonna happen. I always said this, everyone thinks the worst, so. Actually, I was pleasantly surprised with the email that he sent us, because I thought it was that he just stopped doing it.
Yeah.
And, there was nothing being done. But it was a simple question that I was asking for a month, and then you finally got the answer to it, and it wasn't as bad as what I thought it was gonna be. So why are you hiding? Why is the village hiding the news? I mean, it's gotta be told to us, good, bad, or ugly,
Okay.
or good,
This is
so.
also where I think it would be really helpful if a member of the village manager's office, and I think Dan Sarnoff has the most experience, come to these meetings. So he could answer that question in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have to wait a month.
Okay,
All right,
And I'd
so-
really like to suggest moving forward, you can zoom in,
Mhm.
but I really think
Yeah.
Dan should be at these meetings.
well, that's up to I think the Board of Trustees knows that, and we could request
I
that
think
as
we can
well.
request it
Yeah.
again.
Okay, so,
we were talking about doing an additional meeting or additional get-together or something with you guys, so.
We are,
And you feel that we need to, let's be honest, you feel like we need to be a lot more organized.
yeah, like this is a
And-
very
and
good
get-
example of how it
Yeah,
should be.
all right, that's fine.
Very organized, and it's not just
Yeah.
kind of just. And I think you've seen, you're the new chair, that will like make sure the meeting is running and people are,
Yep.
everybody has a chance
Yeah,
to speak.
okay.
And
That's-
I'm all in favor of having an additional meeting. I can't speak for the other 4. I would be more than happy to have it. I think it's imperative and very important to our community. But as long as it's just like, there's a target, there's a goal of what the meeting's gonna be discussed,
Mhm.
and there's a target of what we're gonna be discussing, so we can make sure we're getting work done and any questions are being answered.
That's
I think
fair,
everyone's
fair
committed
enough.
to that.
That's the commitment that's my only ask.
okay, all right, so again, going back to, we propose that a regular river maintenance program. And we also propose about why to find out the information, why we're capped out, and why 5 years instead of 10. So, all approved?
And one other thing,
Yeah.
how much can we actually take out of a river per year?
I just want I think the question is really just like, what are the constraints and restrictions to the permit? That includes time limit, how much can be removed,
I'm just-
what areas, I
Yeah.
just think that you just want the details of the permit.
Right,
Okay.
I just want to add
Yeah.
that, because if not, we
Yeah, no,
get lost in this
so
office.
then you're exactly, you're gonna have to ask it again.
Yep.
But I
Okay,
think you're just more broad of like,
Yep.
just give me all these
All right,
details, but
so-
especially these is.
all right, so
Okay.
again, I propose that we have a memo to the board
Mhm.
about maintaining river maintenance, channel deepening, and ask the question about why we capped out and why the permit was 5 years instead of 10, and what are the constraints and restrictions of the permit. that everything?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Excellent. All right, let's go on to next. Let me just scroll down. We did that, Okay, I know you've been waiting here for a while.
Are you gonna talk about this property purchases?
We will talk about that as well.
That kind of.
Oh, okay.
I actually think we really need Dan Sornoff here for that discussion. I think that's because he knows everything about this.
Yeah.
And I think it's,
I mean, I think everything leads to everything, so Harbor Heights leads into the impactful properties, because that's one of them's in there.
To stand, just to stand over here.
well, wait,
Yeah.
are we,
We're gonna skip.
we're
up the-
skipping Harbor Heights?
No, we're gonna talk about it. We're,
Oh.
we're, we're,
And
we just have Kate. Let's have-
Wherever you want me, I
Yeah,
don't care.
just, you know, you've been waiting here, so why
I'm
don't you
gonna
do?
stay till the end, so I
Oh,
don't care.
okay.
Do you want me to come up and stand?
So what are we talking about?
We'll talk about, the update for Kate and the environmental committee. We're gonna go back to Harbor Heights.
No, was that on?
Yeah.
I'll just
Yeah,
stand
one-
over here and
yeah.
stand over one of these mics.
Yeah.
Okay, that
Yeah.
sounds good.
They're all live?
No, so, yeah, it's a little circle one, these aren't.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Just so people can-
Okay, ready?
Yep.
So I'm basically here at the request of our new mayor, who suggested there was a whole discussion about dredging and some confusion, and said that she thought that the environmental committee and the flood committee should be in better communication, and that they're consider having liaisons to one another. So, you know, you do whatever you want to do. But since I come here anyhow quite a bit, I figured, you know, I'm showing up at your meetings half the time. I'll just be the official liaison. Why not? So that's why I'm here and that's why I'm standing here. So I don't have a lot to say, but I just want to kind of give you a quick update. So as most of you know, our committee has put together a proposal for a greenway. You should all have seen copies of that. It would have gone to you. And if you don't have it, I'll send it to you again. And that was presented to the Board of Trustees on the 27th of November at a work session. So there was not a formal vote, but there was a basic acclamation that it was that it was a good idea. What's not to like, I think it was said. Okay, and so therefore we went ahead and we put together a grant proposal to Long Island Sound Study that, you know, is very interested in anything that's going on in the Sound Shore area. And that also relates to flooding. And they have some money, they have different pools of money. So this particular one,
I'm sorry, who was the grant?
Long Island Sound Study, I think they're called, LISS.
Lidswick.
No, it's not
It's
Litzwick.
really different.
No, So Long Island Sound Study is an organization that studies the entire Long Island Sound watershed that includes actually a lot of Connecticut, Long Island. We're just a tiny little piece of it. And they have funding that comes through the national, I believe it's the National Wildlife, it's through one of the federal agencies. I forget which one, the Fish and Wildlife Agency. So they are a conduit for money that comes from the federal government. What's that?
They're studying the Greenway project?
Well,
or-
we're studying Long Island Sound, of the whole Long Island Sound watershed. So because we're in that watershed and we meet their criteria, we applied for $100,000 for design money to start to design the Greenway. So Gino helped me out and he actually got some ballpark quotes on what the Greenway might end up costing, a whole lot more money than that. But it's a start anyway. But knowing that like the design alone, if we design the whole thing, which is huge, would be like $700,000. But 100,000 would at least allow us to design a chunk of it. So that's the idea. So they have a grant writer. It's called Millennium. I don't know if you're familiar. So who they keep on retainer. So I worked with that woman. Her name is Taryn, and also Dan Sarnoff a little bit. And so that went in, and I think we have a fairly good chance of getting it. So that's in the works. We'll know by the end of January, more or less, February. And then if we get that, they'll design this, and then based on a formal design, we can then look for other money to do construction. So that's,
I'm sorry, Kate, maybe I'm misunderstanding. I thought you said the 100K was just to start the design process, but the
Well,
whole design.
Here's the
process-
idea. So I discussed this with Dan. So basically, if they're gonna give us $100,000 and we need more than that to do the full design, there's two ways to go. One is to try to do the whole thing in a more broad brush way. And my feeling was, and Dan agreed with me, that we have enough like broad brush studies sitting on shelves. Let's design a piece of it and we can all agree where we want to do that. Take out a chunk that's relatively easy to do. And have it be shovel ready.
A way to figure out what part of the design would be the most helpful.
I think it's also what would be the most feasible. So I can talk about that in a minute, but, if you look at my plan, you can think about that too yourself. You can have an opinion. We can't talk about that right now because there's no time. Okay, but, so I'm gonna be working very intensively with this woman, Taryn, to look at construction grants, to look at further design money, and thirdly, acquisition. So acquisition is really the issue where here and there, the village does not own the land. So they need to get a hold of the land. So in the plan, when you look at it closely, you're gonna see that there's several pieces that are owned by, up near, just north of North Shore Farms, where the Con Ed station is, the substation, if you know where I'm talking about. There's a big parking lot on the corner of Leicester and Nostrand. There's a huge parking lot that I feel would be extremely beneficial to get that parking lot out of circulation before they decide to put an apartment building on it at some point, which will happen. Just, mark my words, okay? And use that as a park / retention, and it's adjacent to the river. So that's one idea. So there's other pieces of land and you can look at the plan and see where they are. But there is money to acquire this kind of land, but I don't know a whole lot about it. But I'm gonna find out more. So I've spoken a little bit with Greg Cutler about this. I've talked a little bit with Dan Sarnoff, and I've asked the grant woman to go deeper to find out where there are funds at the state level or whatever level that we could theoretically apply for to add land to the greenway that would also be for flood mitigation. So it has the dual purposes, right? And so that, I'm kind of spearheading that effort, but it should be a joint effort. Everything that's worked so far has worked because it's been more than one committee collaborating, like the whole Columbus, the whole Columbus Park thing, I think partly got as far as it did because it came from two committees. Or Rockland Pocket, for example, that was a joint effort between our committee and the tree committee. So in any event, somebody on this committee might want to work with me on that. Could be Tony, whoever, you figure that out, okay? Because it's going to be a lot of work. And, we're talking about getting into the trenches, applying for grant money. And I feel like as much as we can bring into the village, that the village does, they may have to match parts of it, what have you, but as much money as we can bring in for these purposes, the better off we are, because, the taxpayers don't have to come up with it. So that's the big thing that I wanted to mention here tonight, okay?
Thank you.
All right, and then two other smaller items, okay? So I spend a lot of time out in the field on the rivers, checking stuff out, like almost every day, honestly. One of the things that's troubled me in terms of river maintenance is the presence of the invasive vines that growing into the river. And you've all seen that, right? If you look at Columbus Park. So for example, let's just take Columbus Park. There was a county grant that was given, I'm gonna say 15-ish years ago, to put native plants in Columbus Park. Well, then that land was never, the county did it, that's great. But that wasn't something the Parks Department, I guess, felt comfortable, maintaining. I don't know, but it really never got touched. So it's completely full of vines. And I've been mentioning this for 2 years. And so I finally said to Jerry, at our last meeting, this is driving me insane, because, and it's a huge flood issue. You know, if you look at Columbus Park, you see the amount of vines that are encroaching into the river. And so they're slowing the flow of water, you know, and then in a flood situation, they trap everything. They're trapping logs, they're trapping debris, they're trapping garbage. So I see it as a major flooding issue. And it's also an environmental issue because these things are invasive plants. They don't hold soil. They lead to more erosion. They kill the natives. They're super problematic. So look, we've done a lot with volunteers already. I said, look, this has made me so insane. I want to get a group together of vine cutters and we'll go down in the river and we'll start cutting them with your permission, sir. Yeah.
I just jump in?
Yeah.
So you are saying, I just make sure I
Yeah.
understand, the vines we're talking about are by are the ones that are like adjacent to the parking lot,
They're
correct?
almost everywhere.
Oh, like all,
You
they're
go
all.
along any river and you look at it, you'll see, what is all that
And you're
stuff?
saying when those native species were planted by the county, that essentially our Parks Department never maintained them? I don't
Think so. I mean, I wasn't
No,
here,
I-
so I don't want to accuse anybody.
Whether they maintained or not, they need to.
Those-
be
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Just in Columbus Park.
Yeah,
That wasn't,
only there.
that wasn't
so-
the length of.
No,
the park.
I frequent there a lot, so like I know,
Yeah.
like, when I go there, it's a huge eyesore, so every kid goes.
It's an eyesore, but it's a flooding problem.
Oh, yeah,
And
great.
it's terrible.
You go to Jefferson Avenue Bridge, for example, and you look up towards, you know, where CVS is. You know, they're hanging off the trees. They're drooping down. I mean, I've taken
way up and
photographs
down.
to the Board
No,
of
no, I think
Trustees.
it looks hard,
And
so
well, I don't even care, you know, how it looks. You look at that stuff and it's capturing all the garbage and it's basically functioning like a dam. I mean, it's a flood issue.
Set of brakes. that's
It's a
slowing
flood
it.
issue. So anyway, long story short, I don't know if any of you are volunteering, because that's why I got them. I'm like, oh, let's go, girl, you know, get your boots on, you know?
I'm already in physical therapy.
All right,
If
all
you
right.
put together a list of volunteers, I can come myself, or I can look for people.
Yeah,
Well,
I
can I-
mean,
can I make a
honestly, the village
suggestion
should do
also?
it themselves, but
I-
the way to
I
get the
also
village to
think
do
that-
things is to do it yourself. And then they get embarrassed and then they do it, okay?
This should be, I think, added to the river maintenance, and I
No,
was saying
exactly.
this just,
Yeah.
just on Plaza, if you look at the river, we don't even cut back the branches, and as Kate said, it's not even vines, it's every.
Yeah.
Trees that fall into the river.
Well, that
Well, the
too, but
trees they're sort of
That's
dealing
different.
with, but the ongoing vines is an issue.
Sometimes
So-
it's
No,
the
they're not.
vines, it's
Yeah.
the vegetation,
Yeah, and
that should
there's
be
not
part
weed.
of the maintenance
Yeah.
of the river.
So I don't want
No,
to
no,
take too
I-
much of your
I
time,
100%
but
agree.
what he said is he would, Jerry said he'll take it to Kyle. So Kyle is the Marine Center
Yep.
person who is used to doing this, because he said you can't just go out there. You need to have a staffer with you. And they've done that. And I think that's fair, at least the
Yeah.
first round, because you're gonna have volunteers, you know,
Right.
everybody
Our
signs a
person-
waiver,
Right.
but if somebody slides down, clunks their head, you know. you
Well, the
don't want
other
a
thing is,
situation.
can you do it in the winter? It's too cold.
Yeah.
You have
know
to
what?
wait until it's.
That's not your problem. If you're not participating, that's not your concern.
It's easier in the winter
You
because
know,
there's
I've
no
done
leaves on
lots
the
of work in the
trees and they're
wintertime.
not growing.
You know, so you can, unless you're gonna sign up, you don't need to worry about that.
So you get those young people,
I'm, in
let
this
them get
weather,
cold.
I'm happy
Yeah.
to go out and, you know, like every time I go there, I think, damn, you know, let me just
Yeah.
do this. So that's, now that's a topic for you to all think about and decide if you want to join. And Manny's gonna be my new best volunteer. All right. Trust me, we have- My guarantee, my volunteers, they keep coming back because we have fun, okay?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Couple questions.
Go ahead.
So $750,000 to
Yes,
do
yes.
this greenway.
Right.
Is it acquiring, is the 700 including
I
design,
will tell you.
acquiring?
No, that's
uh,
only for design.
That's just
Okay,
design.
this is
just
how
for
it works.
design?
Yeah, look at okay, let me give you the numbers. It's 3.1 miles long. It's 22 acres. Okay, this is a lot of stuff.
Just for the design of it?
But it's
Okay,
not a small
so,
project.
and look at.
That's a
this
huge
is-
project, yeah.
You hire a landscape architect, they charge a lot of money. Okay, look at, you know, it is what it is. It
Pay
is
me
what
the
it is.
750, I'll design it for you
All right, but
guys.
you don't, that.
I just
includes-
think that's a
It's-
little
okay,
overboard,
this is-
I have to be honest with you.
I don't want to argue with you
Yeah.
about it, because what I asked for purposes of the grant, to make our grant more legit, I said, help me get a ballpark. What's the range? And the range is 350 to 750, depends on the complexity
And
of
now
the
it's
deal. So they
750.
cover themselves, right? And they go into that, they back into that number by looking at construction costs. And the construction cost is $1 million per mile to $2 million a mile, depending on complexity. And then they put a bunch of fudge factors on it. So that's like, there's just industry rules of thumb. Okay, so we're gonna try to get it all paid for, and we're gonna try to get good deals, you don't, so,
At
okay.
least you could get it started with the
Yeah,
100.
Okay.
basically.
So what is, so it's not gonna be like it's not gonna be like a concrete, I shouldn't say concrete, it's not gonna be like a paver path or something like that, it's
Well,
just gonna
I
be a
mean, what
path
I
in the
want is
woods.
gravel path, but then they're gonna have to do some grading. They're gonna have to remove a lot of invasive species. They're gonna plant a lot of plants and trees and things. So, but
Yeah,
I'm
well,
not a designer, so we're gonna get the money, we're gonna get the
Now-
best people,
Yeah.
and then we're gonna see what they come up with.
And also from
I
a
have a
flood
question.
mitigation point of view, me and Kate talked that we will do some benching on like some of the like the bigger areas, like around 95 and Grove Street, and
Yeah, I mean, that's probably gonna happen, later on.
Blessed by the Army Corps? I would think it would.
Well, that's what I was gonna say,
Well,
because
the Army Corps is the permitting, they're gonna be permits required. Okay, and so, whatever permits are, I mean, of course, it's gonna be a give and take with the Army Corps, who we're in conversation with, And all I can say, for example, the whole thing with, the whole Jefferson Avenue thing. That idea came out of, Tony and I worked on that together, and, Jefferson parking. And, the board was very hesitant about it, but the Army Corps understood that it's actually good for their project, and it's a whole lot cheaper than building a tunnel. So,
The
you
committee
know.
had suggested this 2 years ago to have a culvert. After that container got stuck.
right, well,
Behind it,
we
no
made
one-
this proposal to the Board of Trustees in June of 22, as you know.
saying, this
was done Okay.
even earlier that. The
Okay,
idea
well,
of the,
great, but we made a formal proposal that then went to the Army Corps that was accepted by the Army Corps. So anyway, I'm just saying that I think they're more receptive than you may think, but I don't want to get into the weeds here. I just want to move to my last topic so you can get on with your meeting. Okay.
that's fine, I had a few questions.
Yeah.
So you know how I feel below, we had this conversation, below Halsted Avenue Bridge.
Right,
And that area, Ward and,
right.
and where Tompkins Avenue Park is.
Okay,
um,
actually, I don't know how you feel. We've never talked about that.
Well, I mentioned that, I said that we should find out what the Army Corps is gonna do, because that's their focus, is from Halsted Avenue down.
only to Ward, it stops at Ward.
They start,
Yeah, well,
they're
Ward, but
starting
below
about
that,
Ward.
Yeah, but there's gonna be, look, Tompkins Avenue Bridge has to be dealt with.
I'm
The
just saying
Army
that's not
Corps is
part of,
not doing it.
I'm just saying that's not part of the Corps'
I don't know if
project.
it's the state or the.
Okay, hold on a second. So if we are going to do work and we don't know what work is gonna be done down there, and
Right.
that could be a tweak, because if we open up down low, the water goes out, it flows. It's common sense. If that area below Halsted Avenue Bridge is a big giant, triple the size, more water can get through that area. So that's a tweak. So what I'm trying to say to Kate, I
Yeah.
saw her plan,
Mhm.
and can we hold off on that part of your
That lower
plan?
section?
That lower plan
Yeah,
until we know
okay.
what's gonna happen down there, whether it be
Yeah,
removal of Ward Avenue Bridge, fixing Tompkins Avenue Bridge, because that whole area might not be,
yeah,
that
that's
it
gonna
might
change.
change
It's
down
gonna
there.
change a
Bernie,
lot.
just so
So-
you know, the Corps' project originally had taking the profile of the river, which is the bed, and lowering it from Halsted Avenue to Ward Avenue, lowering it for.
I know, but SLR said they had conflicting
Just telling you, when you're talking
ideas
about
and
river, that was the
Ward Avenue Bridge. Army Corps thought should be 55 feet wide, and SLR said should
I
be
know.
75 feet wide.
I know.
So if they make it 75 feet wide, that means Ward Avenue Park, if you know where Ward
Yeah,
Avenue
sure,
Park
of
is,
course I do.
gone.
Yeah, I mean.
Which is why we
gone.
need to have a discussion with.
Well, that's what I'm
mean,
saying.
If I
Can
can-
we,
if you want me to address that
Yeah,
specifically,
yeah.
in my plan, I refer to the fact that the Army Corps and Jerry had stated that the widening of that bridge is gonna pretty much demolish the existing Ward Avenue Park.
Yeah.
playground.
Yeah.
So I get that. And so, but there is, the land there is quite wide and it goes along the river. So there's probably room for a pathway, but you know, I agree with you that if that's where they're working actively, that's not the target where you want to, where we would want to be working. So, but if you look, if you're standing on Ward Avenue Bridge and you look north, there's quite a bit of land up to the Anita Avenue Bridge. In fact, there's a house there that should be on your list, okay? Right by the Anita Avenue Bridge, that's, you know, right, it really should be on your list. Okay, but anyway, there's village land, and then there's a little piece of private land. And then there's another chunk of village land, and then there's 2 chunks of private land. So, you know, another thing that we're gonna be doing is we've sort of opened a relationship with the Westchester Land Trust, who is very good at this kind of stuff, to see if those pieces of land that can never be built on, they're very low, they're very near the water, they flood. If the people there might be willing to do what's called a conservation easement. So, you know, there'd be an arrangement where that would be part of Village Park or something like that. So we're gonna be looking at that. But that would not be the first choice of something of a place to work.
Just keep in
Obviously.
consideration that area is gonna be, we don't know, no one knows what's there gonna do.
Absolutely. So.
I mean, it doesn't make sense to design something, pay for
Of
the
course not.
design, get ready, and then, put a path there, and then all of
Yeah.
a sudden they're in there with the bulldozers and they're digging
Well,
out.
I think
So-
we've addressed.
Yeah,
it.
so anyway, we
Yeah,
talked
where-
about maybe having a task force, you know, like that includes maybe members of your committee or some other, even some outside people that aren't on either committee. You know, that's a possibility. That's, you know, Nora and they've talked about that a little, so I don't know.
I think Brian's
Um,
got a good point. Until we hear from the Corps and we have a game plan, we shouldn't be getting too focused on.
Below.
Right, but there's a lot of riverway here and.
1 mile, so you
Right,
can.
and there's also the Army Corps also, you know, they lead and they follow and, you know, and the whole Jefferson, you know, Avenue Park is an example of it where their proposal to have a tunnel was a disaster. And they've said now quite a few times that, no, they're gonna go the route that we've proposed. So that's kind of amazing, right? Anyhow, the last thing is, just, I've heard this committee talk about stuff in the river. And so, you know, I think you might want to think about that again, like, because I walk along the Sheldrake behind like, you know, the different businesses there. There's a bunch of landscapers and I actually end up getting into a conversation with one of them because they're storing all kinds of stuff back there right near the river that in floods, it's going to end up in the river. So I don't know if that should be a code or what have you, but you know,
That is
plastic
code.
piping and
It's
I-
a code that's not.
That's not
upheld.
being,
Okay. there is code that they can't do that.
It's on the show, it's on the low hanging fruit.
Fruit list.
Yeah, so
It's
we'll,
already on there.
Pallets, so I got into a whole discussion with the one guy, and you know, I told Jerry I'd send him pictures and I guess they'll send code enforcement, but I wasn't sure where you all stood with that. Okay, so I didn't want to take too much of your time, but
Thank you, Kate.
just to kind of, you know.
thank you, Kate. I
Give
think the
you a
one,
report from
yeah.
our committee.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
I
I will not resolve everything tonight.
I think we do want to have somebody to liaison back. Does anybody have any thoughts on volunteers' thoughts? Anybody want to do it?
what, to go to committee for the environment?
Yeah, to be the, to be
Be
the,
the liaison.
to be the
Oh,
liaison.
be the liaison.
I think Tony's already got that relationship. I think that makes sense if Tony will do it.
I'm fine with that, Tony.
You know, I mean, I don't mind telling you if there's any.
Tony's
support.
asleep.
Those are good
Tony's
things.
out.
He's sick.
Good.
Don't beat him up.
He's still on.
Poor guy.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right,
So we meet on the second Tuesday, you meet on the third Tuesday.
okay.
4th Tuesday.
We meet at 7:30.
All right, I'll be the liaison, at least for a while, okay?
Thank you, Tony.
That sounds good. I love it.
Thank you. Okay, I just want to quickly bring up the low hanging fruit list. I know we kind of said what we're gonna do with
Yep.
that. And we'll, and
So
but,
let us come back to you.
yeah, come back to us on
Okay.
that. But I do think we also want to do some kind of, there's just so many different things. I think we want to have maybe a lead on each point that we're talking about or each.
Why don't Patty and I try and bang it into shape and then we can discuss it at the next
Okay,
meeting? Does
that's
that make
fine.
sense?
Okay,
We could.
and maybe just like, you know, like each major category and have someone who would be the lead on, and then we could also take subcommittee members and do it that way.
Or let's see if we got the list together enough that we can just send it up to the board. Let's see
Okay.
where we get to.
All right,
Would, what the board passed last year, would that be low hanging fruit about, other municipalities sending someone to?
That's
meet-
on our list
So
of
that-
low hanging fruit.
So that was my.
Oh, it is, okay.
You didn't read my memo?
I did, but I don't,
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
on
have
there.
it.
It's on
I thought it was gonna be. Okay.
Yeah,
All right, so that's in there.
so I think we can actually then start talking about the Harbor Heights update. On December 17, some of the FMAC members and trustees, Leilani and Manny, met up. About 20 local residents from Harbor Heights area. We talked about ACOR, emergency procedures, the dam, the road to nowhere, river cameras and measuring sticks, and the impact of paving Warren and Nelson streets. Tony, if you're there, I just sent over some pictures to you. You think you could put those up? If you can.
Are
But-
those the ones with the spillway?
Yeah,
All right, hang on one second.
thank you. But in the meanwhile, Manny and Peggy, why don't you talk about, that a little more in detail?
yeah, I think it was, for me, it was like, first one, I know you had one before, I thought it was very informative to kind of, one, not focus on areas that we know flood, but areas that flood and it's not discussed, because I think every time people think about flooding, they get Washingtonville, which obviously gets hit the worst, but there are other areas in our community where there is a huge impact of flooding. So for me to go there and like learn and get the history of flooding in a different area was really important to me. I want us to do more of those, and I just think what came out of that also was doing a river walk. I think a river walk for this committee, a river walk for the board, or the river walk for the community, like that is a huge thing that people need to, that should attend, and we should publicize and do, because I just think that gives people a better understanding of why we flood, how we flood, where the water, how the water flows. You just have an understanding of, the flow of water.
Why
in
don't
our
we pick a
community.
date then now to do a river walk?
I think we should, and I know it's winter, so it's kind of cold, so it's kind of.
No, now,
Well,
if we do it, now is a good
On
time.
that list.
Yes,
Yes,
Okay.
it's the whole river
Well,
and
Okay, 'cause we
Sheldrake.
did,
I mean, my question is, do we want to wait for replacement for Elsa first?
There's the picture of the dam.
I think as well as other things in the river, there are neighborhoods that flood that aren't on rivers.
yeah, that's why I think it's important
Well,
to touch those places, those neighborhoods.
Right.
And
not
First,
just-
First
not just the
Street,
Riverwalk is what I'm saying. There's other
I think
things.
both-
There's Gedney Pond is
Yeah.
contributing to it. That's,
that would be part of the river walk.
Yeah,
First
Well,
Street.
Steve was doing that, so you're gonna continue doing that?
We'll continue to do that, but I think
That was-
neighborhood,
That was
that's neighborhoods.
Yeah.
There's a neighborhood discussion,
Oh,
and
okay.
then there's a river
Oh,
walk.
it's two different pieces.
The neighborhood discussions, we just need to be careful because we need to make sure we're not violating open meetings laws.
Yeah,
Same thing with the river walk, if we make it,
if it's a
If it's a
thing where.
public thing.
If the whole board is committing to do a river walk, then I think it just goes through a different process. It needs to be noticed. It's an
Yes,
official
right.
meeting and it's just.
and we invite the entire board of trustees.
Exactly, yeah, so I think that's a different process, but I think if we schedule that far enough out, like we can do the proper work of noticing it, letting people know.
Yeah.
And then getting the.
Yeah, I mean, what's the time frame for getting a new trustee on to replace Elsa? I mean, if it's.
A
gonna-
new member,
Yeah.
I think there's people on the waiting list.
there's.
But they haven't been approved by the board yet.
So we have it approved. My goal is to have that happen as fast as possible. I don't want, like appointing somebody when we know we have people who want to be on it is, we should just do it. And I just think that's a second meeting in January, because I don't think we put it on for our first meeting in January. So I think that, and because she just resigned this week, but I just think my goal is to have somebody appointed so that they can attend the February meeting.
This talks about adding people too.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
No, I thought you were talking about replacing
Replacing
Elsa.
and adding.
The replacing and a potential expansion of the committee
How many
There are two that
expansions?
were going to be added in January.
too.
Yeah.
But since we lost Elsa, it might either it's gonna be
Could be
two, or
three.
it could be three totally new people.
Yeah, so I think we should wait to have the.
The river walk.
Until.
The river
So
walk
to
should be in
the
February.
February?
I think February
Yeah.
should be the river walk.
Weather permitting.
Yeah, I know, because
I mean,
that's when we,
It's
I was
actually,
gonna offer to take anybody on a walk on Greenway Walk, which is the same as a river walk. So anyway, I'd be happy to participate in that as well.
I actually think it's better when the leaves are off the trees. It's easier to get around and see stuff.
absolutely.
So February is good. It should be a weekend.
Yes.
Do we
But I
want it to be, I mean,
I just thought it was very informative, and I just think it's
No, I
something that
think-
the entire community should be able to like.
we've
participate
always
in.
done them.
Yeah, it was really great.
We've always done them. We want to pick a date in February?
I think let's just wait until we get.
I think you should pick a date in the January meeting.
Okay,
And you're gonna pick a date, and then I just think like, but I think someone should list now.
but hold on,
They have that
the
on the
January
agenda
meeting is gonna be the end of January.
Exactly, so I just think,
Do you want to, maybe we should just hold a date,
hold,
and
yeah,
we-
you should hold a
and-
date, or you just email a whole date to discuss in January to finalize, like, this is
confirm
our
it, but
date,
I think we
exactly.
should hold a
How about we
date.
just do that offline, because I don't think all of us have calendars right now in front of us.
That's fine,
Okay,
Yeah.
whatever you guys want to do, I think you can email offline and say like, these are my proposed dates, and here's.
And then-
And we want to do the whole board, we also, if we want to do the whole board of trustees, we
Another-
have to get
yeah.
that.
well, that's why I
Go
think we
to
should do it
Washington.
sooner
I
than
love
later.
it.
No.
And I don't know. when
At
their
least I'll
next
save the date.
WNA meeting is too. Because I know, like, I know I spoke to Laura,
I think it's,
and she said she
It
would start
is.
inviting me to those, and I was like, great, I'd love to come, but I don't know when they are. I want to be able to participate in those as well. Is this the last agenda item? Cause I have like requests from you guys, from you.
Sure,
Or you guys.
Okay.
there's still
We have
one
a
thing,
couple of
I'm-
other things.
yeah, a couple other things.
Yeah, keep going. So I want to
Okay.
say my things at the end, like I don't want to do it.
Okay, or if you want to just, Tony has just some pictures, if you want to just
Yeah,
go
yeah.
through them for,
This is the storm 2 Mondays ago,
Mhm.
and that was the river, is that the video that I sent you?
yeah, it looks like, Tony, you could play it, it looks like,
Yeah,
That's
Yeah,
the
the
dam.
yeah.
but
Right,
it
hang
looks
on,
like
I'm
it's not
trying
open
to-
flashboards, it looks like.
It's going through the
going through.
flashboards,
Mhm.
but it's at the top of the dam itself.
Oh, it's there.
It's not the one I sent you, is it?
There's actually two, there's something else, sent me one, I think there might be two of them, because I think Jerry might have sent one or something. Had Jerry might have one or somebody else.
I can't
So-
seem to open the other one, Steve.
Oh, okay,
It
Yeah.
was really interesting though, because in that storm, there was water coming down. Remember when we stood at Winfield Avenue and said, if you could cut that piece
Yeah,
of that
Yeah.
that
bulge
property, yeah.
out,
yeah. Also, I have that,
somehow
yeah,
a second river got created in that storm that went through the woods and dumped out right in front of my house into the river. It was wild. I've never seen that
What
before.
did it do?
I have a video, but it's teeny weeny on my phone, if I can find it.
sent you the schedule.
Thank you.
When we were standing on the Winfield Avenue Bridge, you were.
Let me show you.
January 25th. Put that in.
You wanna come have a look?
I was thinking that maybe, well, we'll have to talk to the.
I think this is gonna last till 11.
I
I
know,
better
I'm
get my
getting
pillow because I don't last that long.
That's how high it was.
Holidays.
And then
No,
Not even that, it's, you know, getting up for work the next day.
Oh, my God.
I'm dumping out.
I know, you're retired, right?
Where is this though? This
That's
is-
across from my house and this is coming from Winfield.
Santa?
What yard is that in? Oh, that's, no, no.
See?
There like all week.
That's the river and that's the second.
But is he like adorable or what?
Oh, that's in that,
That's in that woods across
yeah,
from
that
my
woods
house.
thing,
Yeah.
but this is, where is?
That's the road to nowhere.
Yeah.
Okay, and then where is
That's the
this?
same thing, the woods across from.
Is Jacobs?
Is this? So where is
Oh,
James? Is James
North-
over?
North James is right here, Urban is here, Winfield is
Oh, this
here.
is taken out of your house. That's
No,
why it's
no.
throwing you off.
That, but this river, you can see it better in the next one. That river never existed before.
Someone I work with.
This
Oh, well, it's
section.
coming up onto the, it's coming up on, it's jumping
at
onto, yeah,
Winfield
yeah,
And
yeah.
going through the woods,
It goes on that little,
which has never happened before.
here's actually a picture of the house at Winfield, just in general,
Yep. So you saw this because I sent that
Yeah.
one too.
yeah, I see.
because
Did you
Peggy,
see
I
that?
was thinking that if an H&H guy looks at,
No, this is the river, and this is that river coming through the woods.
Wow.
Yeah,
Is he good?
and that's the road to nowhere.
if the,
wow.
if the H&H guy looks at the reservoir, they're gonna wanna look at this area too,
Of course,
which is this.
yeah.
and probably,
all the way down.
yeah, they're gonna wanna figure this out
Mhm.
too,
No, we can
so.
take them on a walk, but this is.
Let's,
this is
I
a
think we should look at the
nothing
pictures that we have,
rainstorm.
that Tony
Yeah.
pulled up for us. 'cause-
Yeah, these are pictures actually of, this actually goes into the next topic as well.
Yeah, I think that's.
This is the house on 1631 Winfield
The
Avenue.
one in the bottom?
Yeah.
1635.
1635, okay, so, and you know, this leads into the impactful properties.
Wow.
Part, so, you know, I think there's two properties that come right to mind to me.
This one and this, what's the other?
The one in, on Boston Post Road,
Closer to the river than.
this is the
The
one right
white
next
one
to,
that's the ranch is on the river.
yeah, this is the one.
That's-
This is 1631 Winfield, actually.
1635.
1630.
Oh, was it
35.
5? All right, I was just going,
Yeah,
no. All right,
1635.
so this is the picture of it, and,
And it is not inhabited at this.
Is that- That's not the new one then.
no,
No, the one
no.
next to it is the one that went up.
Yeah.
And then the one on
This is
the,
like the yellowish one?
that's a
The-
white one.
Oh,
a
it's white?
One, then there's the one on up, then there's a kind of a beige house.
Yeah.
That also gets monstrously.
I mean,
flooded.
yeah, I think the whole thing is like, you know, SLR report mentioned a lot by properties. And I think we have to just be very strategic.
I
with
think
what
we
we
need
buy.
to talk to Dan before we have this discussion, just because I've been listening to a whole different perspective for years, and I would rather he share that. And the feasibility of getting the money.
I mean, I think, again, the money is up to the board. I mean, you know, this house is listed, I mean, his estimate 717. I don't know if that's realistic or not.
Sorry?
717 on his estimate.
The
Yeah.
house behind me just sold for 980,000.
This
That
isn't,
had
this is,
5 feet of water in its living quarters in Ida.
yeah, I mean, this,
So,
yeah, I mean, it's up to,
I think we'd have to look at, estimates or guesstimates.
I know.
We'd have to run comps for all these houses. I'm a realtor, so I understand this.
yes.
But New York State buyouts have always been based on the value of New York State property as a whole and not the expense of Westchester County, because I've been through this. I look for a buyout when I raise my house.
I mean, I don't think this is a buy. I think it's just, the village is putting up the money and buying it. I
And
mean,
then you're gonna have to tear the house down.
right,
So you're gonna be looking at somewhere around
$1 million.
$1 million.
I mean, I think it's, you know, again, I think if we were to propose this, it's up to the BOT if they want to spend
Dan
it.
come and speak to us about this before we make a proposal. I feel.
Well,
really
I think we can
strongly
still
about
show, I think we can at least show what the properties are. So this is one property.
I think you could,
Yeah.
I agree. I think if you send, I think if you send a memo, like you guys have done, of just like 2 places you've identified, that is.
I think there are probably many houses
Yeah,
in
I just
this.
think I just think to get a list, start a running list of things that are identified, then we can build on that. And if we decide, great, Dan can come, we can have a discussion. about
I
finding the money.
personally don't think we should be sending lists of people's homes
Okay.
before we speak with him. I think that's wrong. People do own them.
Okay.
And you know that house that's right by the Berry Avenue Bridge that was flooded? And
Which
now they're
one?
Renovating it.
Which one?
Well,
I mean, they're all,
You'll
the
be
ones,
owned by
the
the
ones
Nats.
down,
It was in an estate.
the ones down at the Nask's house is being
Nask house,
redone.
That's what she's talking
But the
about.
ones all the way on that street, there was 17 feet of water on that street during Ida, and that's one of the streets that I keep
Yeah.
saying, we don't talk about this neighborhood.
Mhm.
This is another neighborhood that floods catastrophically that gets ignored.
Yeah.
And that whole area, first, second river, that needs to be
No, definitely.
hugely discussed. So before we start looking at individual homes, I think we really need to understand how that process works.
Whatever you see.
Well, I also not sure.
Can I
that
talk
like
about that
putting
specific
these addresses
property?
here.
Sure. So my feeling is, and I said this to Peggy when we were there, when we were on the Winfield Avenue Bridge. This particular property you might not want to touch this property because of the river, you know, or maybe to take it, just remove the house, but not remove the island there. Because of,
It costs too much money.
yeah, I mean, are you just gonna remove the house and then leave the land as is, or does it become like open river, you know, what's the
I mean,
plan?
I mean, that's up to, I think, the whole study. I think that's would be part of any study that we would do. I mean, the house isn't for sale now,
Right.
but it could be part of any plan that we would do to the river here. I mean, it might be best if we, you know, if we do buy it, get rid of the house and just bench the property.
Yeah.
Patty, what do you say?
I just don't think you should be putting people's addresses out there like this on here and saying we might wanna buy them and tear them down.
Totally agree.
Mhm.
Tacky. And I'm being kind. I don't think,
It's not
if we
fair.
wanna talk about particular properties, that's okay, but putting their addresses is not cool.
Fair enough. I mean, how would you do it then? Just without the addresses? This is a house? I mean,
I'm not sure, maybe just go and take a look, maybe. Has anyone ever?
Should then have a conversation with each of
Right.
the owners if they're prepared to write these kinds of checks. But I think this is, you're dealing with people's biggest investment in their lives. And this goes back to what I had said in my
And some of
memo.
them, as Peggy just said, are going for more than they're probably worth. So how do you do a fair market value on these houses?
Yeah.
It's not, if
They're
it's, if
crazy.
they're saying 700,000 on Zillow or whatever you're looking at, it could easily, I mean, people are having bidding wars over these houses and they've flooded.
Mhm.
I looked into just getting a tax easement on my home. And the
when you
lawyer
ran the
said,
comps.
forget it. Their comps are bringing you over that amount.
so is this an area that we want to address? Or how do you want to address it? Do you want to think about how
I
you
think
want
it's
to?
an area that just from me listening, it's an area you guys wanna hold off on essentially.
I think it should be on the back burner a little bit and think about it more
I really
before we
do.
go
Yeah.
surging
Yeah.
ahead with it.
Okay, okay. I guess there's,
Well, there's a couple of places on.
Unless they're for sale.
Yeah, well, there's the place on Plaza, I don't know the address or whatever, but it's in foreclosure, right? That property.
There is a
that-
property like that, yeah.
Do they own it?
The bank owns it.
Yeah, well, the bank owns, but that's different than someone personally owning it, right? You know what I mean? So,
I don't know that people want their foreclosures necessarily being discussed.
well, what, I'm not saying to put their information on who's being foreclosed on, but I mean, for that, I think that's
It's kind of a well-known area. House, but what he was
it's,
talking
I think
about.
that's an easier, this is treading on thin ice that you're putting addresses out and this place, but that place doesn't have anyone that's there. They foreclosed on it. It's public knowledge that they foreclosed on it, so.
The bank may have plans for it.
Don't banks
knows?
usually want to turf those out when they're in foreclosure? That's my experience.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. You know, they may want to build on it. Who knows?
Yeah, well, that's.
I guess you can stop sharing the screen.
Speaking of building, there's one other thing that I wanted to raise, if I may.
Sure.
A year ago, year and a half ago, the committee was going to liaise with the planning board to make sure that if any building was being done in a flood zone, commercially at least, that we would be consulted so that we wouldn't have something like the Brixmar
Yeah,
property that was built on the ground when we all couldn't understand why it wasn't over the.
yeah, that was
elevation,
something
et cetera.
they were specifically given to me. I didn't get anything lately and I
But
evaluate.
that process
yeah.
has kind of died, and is
I-
it something we want to
Well, I was actually told that they would restart that. I haven't seen any properties
but I
yet. though.
think maybe that's something we want to discuss with the Board of Trustees to say we'd like this to start up again.
I got from planning department, the building department that they would start sending me those again. I haven't got
And you
anything.
haven't gotten anything.
I
so
have not
think-
got
I
anything.
think we need
This
to
was
get
about
an
2 months
official
ago.
policy.
Of construction in a
disagree?
flood zone, they were supposed to be sending Steve the information,
Right.
the packet that was sent to the
Oh.
building department, so he could take a look and say, hey, you know.
Yeah. I honestly, I haven't got anything in a while. I kind of connected with them and said, hey, am I getting something? And,
I think we
They
need to
said
bring
they were
this
gonna
to the
send me
board's
anything?
attention again.
okay, we could bring that to the board's
Well,
attention again.
Can't hurt.
Yeah. I've been checking the agendas and I don't see anything in the near.
But there should be, honestly, there should be a system in place where it's automatic and we don't have to keep playing, Inspector Clouseau and looking for it.
No, but that was my original point, to change some of the building codes
Yeah.
to strengthen the stormwater
We
management.
both had a lot
Where
of,
we,
Well, the ones we
we
have.
can do it and we don't have, we can feel safe about not checking the agenda.
Let's talk about-
We're not there.
No.
yeah, let's reintroduce
It
that
didn't
next
go all
time.
the way.
I think there might be some resistance on the board for it, the existing board, because something, I mean, Manny, that was at least a couple of months ago, they did change the code a little bit, but not as to the extent that we were asking for.
Yeah, we were
So
able
I don't know if
to-
there's I mean, I guess we could reintroduce that, but let's hold that off to
Yeah,
next
that's
month?
off the
Yeah, you can
agenda.
hold that.
Yeah,
I was gonna ask if we can revisit that.
let's revisit it
I
next
think we
month.
should.
Yeah.
And I know you guys sent some legislation last year, I believe, to the Board of Trustees.
Yes. It was
FMAC
actually,
sent it 4 years ago and
Yeah.
it still hasn't
yeah,
been
it was pretty, we
discussed.
sent something pretty chunky over too.
We sent a very simple
Yeah.
set of, Tony, do you remember that? Were you on the board at that point?
I know we had drafted something, whether we ever sent it.
Oh, we sent it. Yeah,
Yeah,
it went when
okay.
Kelly was on the board.
You guys have a copy of it?
I can dig it out.
Yeah, because we could, obviously, we could add those together.
I'll send it.
Yeah.
Discuss it next month.
Because that makes more sense to me, that instead of doing all the legwork and
Sure.
making sure, I mean, if we put the codes in place and we set the rules that.
There are codes in place that just aren't followed, and that's the problem.
Well,
Well, that's-
no, I get
that's
for
the
the
whole
building,
everything.
but that's, you know, but to specifically say you're in a flood zone, you need a 500-year flood,
No, but for
storm
example-
water system in there
Well-
and
FEMA
detention
best
system.
practices clearly should be followed whenever a new construction occurs in our community.
No, they are.
No, they're not. That's the problem. Our building department has not. So that building, the commercial building by North Shore Farms where Chipotle is,
Mhm.
should never have been built on the ground. It should have been built 2 feet over the base flood elevation.
Yeah, I get, yeah, you're
So our
correct.
codes are not, and best practices are not being followed, which is why we started this practice 2 years ago that has hit a roadblock.
Let me ask you a question, Peggy. Now, there's these codes that obviously we as a town don't follow. Now, does the county or the state have any responsibility to enforce those codes?
No, they're village codes.
Even village, I mean, because there's state codes, there's FEMA building
Yeah,
codes.
no, we don't, it's.
We have to enforce our own codes,
Okay, so there's nothing on the,
and we have to enforce in order to get, and correct me if I'm, that's why I would love Dan here. In order to keep our CRS points and in order to keep our flood status, we
Yeah.
have to be following
Yeah.
FEMA best practices.
because there's
We
nothing,
haven't always.
there's nothing on a county level or state level
No.
that,
We are responsible because we have our own building department that we have to
Okay.
follow.
so I'm just asking that because that, obviously, if they were responsible, then there's other things on the. all right.
No, it's
That's-
on
that was
us.
one of the
This
questions
one's
I
on
didn't
us.
know.
No, this one's on us.
Okay, I think that's pretty much the agenda. Do you have any questions, sir, since you have?
I do, as an outsider looking in.
I'm sorry, could you introduce yourself, sir? I don't
My
know.
name is Vinnie Calderon.
Hi.
I own a few properties that get flooded really bad right in front of Columbus Park. But as an outsider looking in, I gotta be totally honest. It just seems like you guys are taking out just too much at once. Stop the bleeding first. You know what I mean? You get, September, I got 8 feet of water in my property. I got the lowest property in all of Mamaroneck. I know I do. I mean, the simple thing of the matter is, the people out there are hurting. What so hard about getting a couple of pumps and putting them in? Why do we gotta have studies and everything else? It's a simple mathematics. You get a pump that pumps 50,000 gallons of water a minute. All right, for 1 hour. How much water does that burn?
Lot.
It's a lot of water. That's just one pump. If you get 2, you'll never get flooded. Then you could take 20 years to do this flood migration. Because that's what it seems like it's gonna take.
Well,
You gotta get with the Army Corps of Engineers. You gotta get with D this, D that, environmental. Get it done. It's a simple thing. If you get a couple of pumps and what's it gonna cost you, $2 million? And that's a high estimate. I mean, it's very simple. A 30,000 gallon pump a minute costs about $250,000. You could buy a mile of pipe for another $1 million. Okay? And say $1 million to put it in. For $2.5 million, you stop the flooding.
Don't slow it down.
At least slow it down. So instead of me getting 8 feet of water, I get 3 feet of water. And some people get nothing. But I've been coming here for years, and the same thing. For years, nothing has been done. Nothing. That's all I'm saying. I'm tired of it. It's a very simple thing. Everyone knows it. You know, they wanna build this, they wanna build that, dog parks over there. Put it out for a vote, put a special election. See how all the people that get flooded say, well, they want the pumps tomorrow. And before you do any other project, put the pumps. That's all I gotta say. I appreciate what you guys do. I'm just getting aggravated. Because I sit here and I say, oh, we gotta get with this, we gotta get with that. Just get the pumps and do it. I'll volunteer. I'll go to Columbus Park, I'll get all the day workers, I'll show them how to put the pipe in. All right, I'll do it for nothing. Just get the material. It's not that hard to do. You follow the river. You put up a couple of hangars. No more problem. No more flooding. Now you can fix the problem on your Army Corps of Engineers. They take 3 years, you gotta deal with money. You got the time because the people aren't flooding. Very simple problem. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I feel, I agree with him, and that was right after the flood, and I posted on my Facebook that we need pumps. And I believe the same thing. I believe it's the cheapest, fastest way to get some kind of security for people who get flood and a little bit of relief that we don't get. You know, we don't have to worry about a 3-inch rain or 4-inch rain, that we can get rid of some of the water. I think it has to be a high priority. I emailed, you know, we emailed back and forth. I did
Yeah.
email, and I have to, look, I'm not running the show here. And I'm not putting the blame on
No,
anyone
no,
else.
no,
I'm
I
not trying to
understand.
throw anyone under the bus, and I get it. I just feel like this is the pumps are a priority at this point because it's gonna be fast and cheap. But you have to understand something, that they have to deal with DEC and all of this stuff, and I get just as frustrated as you. And who wants to save the birds and the bees and
You
the
can
organisms?
save everything. It's gonna be temporary. It's temporary.
Yes.
The pump's there. When they're done with the migration, you take it out.
That's what I said. That's what I said, and I said that.
And I just got one more thing. I just gotta tell you something about the rain and the inches. 2 weeks ago when it rained, everyone says, oh, we got 4 inches of rain. Not the case. The Columbus Park was at its edge. You don't need no gauges. I'll give you my telephone number, because I'm out there all night when it rains.
Sir,
All right.
I've got a bigger problem than you do, so you're preaching to the choir here.
Yeah, so listen,
I had 7 feet. I raised my house. I'm 7 feet off the ground. I spent $500,000 raising it, and I had water in my living quarters in Ida. So you're preaching to the choir.
I'm not preaching choir. I had 16 inches of water. I went by one of my.
I had
dogs and
7 feet.
No, he's not preaching to the choir.
I'm sorry, but he's looking at me as if I'm not
No,
doing
I'm not. I'm
it.
sorry.
So,
It's not-
with all due
no,
respect,
I'm just-
I'm feeling your
I'm just
pain.
telling
I
you.
know.
When we had, last time we were at the border. of
We
Columbus
just squeaked
Park.
through.
We're at the border. It was coming over.
I know.
Luckily, the rain stopped.
I know.
But at that time, when it was coming over, we only had 1.55 inches of water. Not
I've
3
heard all
inches.
different, I've
Yeah,
heard all
they're
different.
taking it from when it started to when it ends. If you get a lull in the system,
I
if you have an inch, it helps them
I know
tremendously.
it does.
That's why if you have a pump, if you have a couple of pumps, before the storm, you can manually put it on, lower the whole river,
I hear you.
and then put it on. Everyone hears. But I have never heard anyone say.
Well,
let's get a
it's
pump.
not on the agenda, but what's on the agenda
We're
is,
sending that as a
this is what
request.
I have to do. Vinny. It's not on the agenda, but they want to talk about the review of the storms that was part of the agenda. And I was gonna bring up the pumps of the review of the storms. on that.
We talked about it.
Pumps.
That was my first,
Yeah,
that
we
was what I
always
said,
mention
my.
No, I.
And we
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
said, we said to
sure.
have Gino come to our next meeting to also discuss it.
Yeah, that sounds good.
That's what we
I
discussed.
said that was my priority
Yeah.
from the beginning. Why isn't it on that list?
Discuss it.
Yeah.
How about get some prices?
Well, but he's an engineer. Let's hear what the engineer has
Yeah.
to say.
Yeah, that's why I said we didn't propose it. We
But
just,
we proposed to have
Yeah.
Gino come.
All right.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank
And I
you.
was not directing.
Thank you.
All right, take
All right, good
care.
night. All right, Manny. You want to give your,
Yes, okay.
your
Yeah,
thoughts?
my requests are, I know Harrison has a flood committee.
Mhm.
Is there any way that you guys can go to one of their meetings, or we can have a joint meeting, or what is
I
that? What is
reached
that?
out to my contact, he has not, they don't meet regularly, so. And
So I'd
they
love them
don't,
to
they don't
come.
have a do they have a mayor yet?
I don't think.
They have a mayor under it's being
Right,
contested.
so I think
So I'm not
everything's
sure
on
if it's a
hold
real mayor.
until,
Got it.
because Rob has not gotten back to me and he's usually pretty good.
Because I just think it's very helpful, because I feel like there's stuff in Harrison
No,
that should be
we've talked
done.
about having joint meetings
And I
with
just
them in
think
the
if we
past.
have either a joint meeting one every quarter, or if
That's a great
they,
idea.
or if they come to, or if a couple of the members can come to our meeting that we have regularly to just discuss like what they're pushing Harrison to do. because
And
they think
Harrison's
it's fair.
doing stuff.
And I
I'll
just
say.
agree, and I think we should,
Yeah.
we need to lean on them to do more. The road to nowhere, that is in Harrison, that is not in the
No,
village.
but
of
there's
Vernon.
county money to get that
And
done.
exactly, and I said, we need to push them
Yes,
to go to the county and
Yes.
make sure that happens. Otherwise, it's.
well,
that's
but it
still gonna
also
be an issue.
affects our residents, so.
Oh,
we can
exactly.
put in our own money to do.
Oh,
it as well.
100%.
Yeah.
But I just think we need to push them and say like, this is
We-
affecting our
I-
residents.
well,
What can we do?
Well,
What
I
can
think
we
what
do?
we need to do on that is we need to have our mayor and the mayor supervisor, whomever it is going to be, and Catherine Parker sit down together to discuss the road to nowhere and the options, because there is county money available.
Yeah,
But we need a supervisor.
Yeah.
We don't
And
have
Peggy,
one.
do you have any old contacts in any of the other towns?
No, because nobody else had one.
Okay,
And the other problem is clearly White Plains.
Yeah.
Because they're doing
Yeah, they're
so much
so-
up county development.
that's one thing I wanted to ask you about, Manny. I mean, like, I think we've never actually proposed, we mentioned about being a party.
No, we have proposed.
We have proposed.
We have
being a party?
proposed, and we are supposedly an informed party, is that the correct terminology?
yeah, we're in one part. So
For
essentially,
Harrison and White
we are.
Plains, but there's never any communication between
yeah,
anybody in the village and anybody in those communities to know what's going on, so maybe that's what this floods are,
Mhm.
will do.
Mhm.
But
That
in the
was the
meantime, that's not
purpose,
gonna
but that's
happen.
Until June.
Exactly, at the earliest.
I mean, is there any way that we could shake some flooding down and, I mean, some money down just from the surplus and get it done earlier?
thinking of floods are.
Yeah.
I just think that process, even if it's it's a budgetary
It's a
constraint.
budget, yeah.
It's that, but it's also, it's not like we can just go and post a position and say we want a flood czar, get a flood czar tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it's a longer process, and that's
Yeah.
why it's really the next budget, because that's being built now. So then when we do have it in the budget, it's when we can take action. Like we can't.
And
I
the
can't
budget's
post-
not due to what, April, May?
And it's not till April,
Right.
the end of April. So it's like that, I believe me, like, no, we all want that's what's going to happen. It's just that I can't be like, all right, great, let's post a position in January and we
Just-
have something. It just is not, it doesn't
It has
happen
to,
that
it has
fast.
to go
Yeah.
through the
It has
process.
to follow that process.
Can I ask you a question? Because this, it was on the agenda for this, the guy that was talking about raising the houses.
Yeah.
And he's a certified flood administrator.
Mhm.
He's,
Well, we're
you know.
supposed to have a floodplain administrator on staff,
Mhm.
which we don't even have.
no, I know, I get that. Until we get that,
Very interesting.
We're, for the past 5 years, we're supposed to have had one,
no, I get,
not the czar, a floodplain
no, but
administrator.
the building inspector is supposed to get is supposed to get is supposed to get the certification, or Gino,
Correct.
either or.
Exactly,
And that's what I feel they should go and get that.
Mhm.
One of those two should get the certified. I feel like it should be Gino,
yes.
because the building department she has enough to do with all that stuff, the certified. But in the meantime, if we're gonna hire this consultant and he's a certified flood administrator, and we're gonna do it by hourly, because you guys were talking about hourly and you want a budget for 10,000.
Yeah.
If he's gonna be the consultant, why, in the meantime, he doesn't send him around, if we're gonna hire him to do houses, which I don't particularly like the idea, but if you're gonna hire him, why don't we hire him to look around the rivers and see what his thoughts are as far as being a certified flood administrator? In the meantime, before, in my opinion, that I think Gino should get that certification. In my opinion, until Gino gets that, in a perfect world, until he gets that certification, if we're gonna hire this guy for consultant to raise houses and he's a certified flood administrator, have him walk around the rivers and pay him to walk around the rivers.
Wait, didn't we have a conversation about this on Winfield Avenue, and why are we hiring someone to do the paperwork when it's simple to do?
Yes. but-
Yeah, I mean, I read it basically, Dan didn't think he had the time and expertise to do it, so maybe it's just got more, maybe it's got more complex over the last 10 years, I don't know.
Or Dan might not have the time to administrate it.
That's what he put
That
down.
might be the case, because it goes through the
Yeah,
village.
that's what Dan doesn't have,
But
it said both.
$10,000, that's.
I think they budgeted for that, right? Am I correct?
How much is it an hour?
It's, I don't remember, the hourly,
120 an hour.
but I know we
That's it?
budgeted for that
Not
amount.
much.
Because the goal is to not obviously use all that budget. The goal is to get to a point where that's happening. We get more people flowing through it and then he's gone. Like we discussed, it, and then the goal is to have the person temporarily until we feel like we can manage and handle that all internally, do it ourselves.
Now, let me ask you.
This is not like a
Well, again,
permanent.
the flood czar is the perfect
It-
person
it-
to do that.
Exactly, like that's something that's what I think, this is temporary. This is not like a
Yeah.
forever thing.
So-
It's something that will be
So
encompassed in
the
that.
4 houses that he's consulted, could that be 5 or 6, or is that a second tranche
So
of
I think
people?
that like the 4 or 5 are part of a pilot, and I just think he would be coming in and doing is if we were us expanding that program.
But people need to understand when they raise their house, and I can speak to this and the Winmores can speak to this. If you get a grant,
Mhm.
it will only pay for a small portion of your project.
What's the percentage? I don't remember.
It was, I think I got about a quarter.
Yeah, so I remember like I remember we discussed at the board.
I mean, I
meeting.
spent $25,000 in just landscaping after the project was done.
Mhm.
There are all kinds of questions that that people need to be aware of
Mhm.
when they're considering doing a house raising. Before we spend somebody to help them do the paperwork,
Yep.
because they need to be able to put in a significant amount of their own money to do this, and not everyone can.
Yeah,
And I think before we have a consultant that we're paying to do paperwork, these people need to understand what that process is.
Mhm.
And if it's 4 or 5 people, I'm happy to talk to them and explain what I've gone through before they start, because, I mean, I spent 300,000+ of my own money,
Mhm.
and I didn't raise it high enough, because I flooded again in Ida.
Yep.
And I had SEMO and FEMA approval on my plans.
I hear you.
I would rather spend the $10,000 on pumps. Be honest with you. But but we're not gonna make that decision. They're gonna make the
I don't think it's my
decision.
decision to
Yeah.
make it, but I think the people who are considering this before we hire a consultant need to understand the scope of what they might be getting into before they start,
Yeah.
because why submit the paperwork if you don't have the money?
Okay.
Paperwork was what had to be submitted by December 15th. Are we talking about more houses than that?
Or so has anything been submitted?
They said 3.
I thought it was 4.
It was 3 houses and it had to be submitted by December 15th,
And were they?
Friday.
I know one house went to the, through the building, the land use, process. One house on Howard. Next to,
I believe that's on the
If
school
you're in the
board's house.
floodway, you're not gonna get federal money to raise your house. That's, Dan Swarnoff has told me that 1,000 times.
I'm sorry, what did you
If you're
say?
in the floodway, money is not available for house raising,
Okay.
federal money.
Alright.
Now, maybe that's changed, but I mean, these are the kinds of things
Yeah.
that need to be looked into before a consultant is.
No, I'm not disagreeing what we're hiring this person for. I agree with you on that point.
And I agree with you on Gino.
But I'm saying if, yes, and Gino should be taking over this role. He should be going for the
As a floodplain
certification.
Administrator.
And I would much rather see him do it and spend the money for him to get it done. To get the certification.
Do we have any idea how long that takes?
That I don't know. I think it's a test.
I mean, would Gino be, instead of a flood czar, or?
No,
Alright,
this is just a floodplain administrator.
oh, okay.
Then the flood czar would be somebody who could help with people doing raising could go out to the communities, the other
He would be
communities.
certified then also. I would think, right?
Maybe yes, maybe no. not
I think we would
necessarily.
want to hire somebody then, they would, you know, to do that. I mean,
But they might not be a certified floodplain
Mm.
administrator. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of a position we're looking to hire.
My desk is 7:30 in the morning.
That's what we're looking to develop.
This is too
Yeah.
late.
we actually have a question from Susan. I guess we could, yeah. All right, now how do I do this? Allow the talk, okay. All right, Susan, I think you could talk. Susan, you still there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Hey,
Yes.
Susan.
Hi, I sent you stuff in your text message, Steve. So
Yes.
Harrison does not have a formal government flood committee. It's a group of private citizens. And so I sent Steve that information for them. And they have their own website and their own Facebook page. And then Rye does have the flood committee, but it seems like kind of outdated on their on the Rye City website. But they do have the list of their people on their committee.
Okay,
That's
thank you.
That's what I
Perhaps-
just wanted to tell you because you were talking about that. And I
Yes.
know the man who does he lives over off on West Street in Harrison on the other
Flogger, that's who I'm in touch with.
on the other side of Mamaroneck River. He lives right there. And
Let me-
and I know that Mayor Murphy has met with the Dean Dioniso, I don't know how you say his name in Harrison, who is gonna be the new supervisor again. So there's pictures of him that I've seen posted, I think on that Harrison group of flood committee members of them meeting and trying to talk about, you know, more cooperation. So
Yeah, but he may not be the supervisor once this court case gets settled.
well, yeah, they just had a big lawsuit
Right.
court last week. And it looks like that he is the committee. All the challenges from the other people were thrown out by the court. So
I haven't heard that.
I'll go to
Can't believe it.
the meetings, Harrison. I mean, I don't know when they are.
well, no, I don't know if sometimes they have like community meetings.
No, there is a flood committee. There's an active flood committee in Harrison. There
No,
was as of last year.
No, it's not a government, not that I've ever researched.
It's,
That's why
it's
they
fun to
started
tell
their
you,
own.
it's a bunch of, no, it's a bunch of appointed, just like our committee is appointed by the board.
I've been I'm very active over here with the residents because they're at Beaver Swamp Brook in Harrison there, and I've done a lot of research. And
Well, I've spoken many times with Rob.
okay,
Flight.
Peggy, I'm not arguing with you. I've just seen you argue all night long with everybody. I'm not arguing with you. Thank you. Goodbye.
Manny, you have anything else to discuss?
No, that was just my main point, of just how we can have more collaboration with our neighbors
Okay,
to push them projects or just have discussions and have them advocate, not only for their residents, 'cause their residents flood as well, but also to understand that it affects our residents as well.
Mhm.
I think that should be like also like, you know, we're talking about everybody having like their own responsibility. I think one of us should have that responsibility to reach out to other, you know, other groups and, you know, and I guess Peggy, since you started with that,
I'm happy to,
yeah.
Bernie, do you want to do it or you want me to do it?
You can do it. I mean, we could take turns doing it if you want to do something like that.
You know what,
I've
it could be
reached
more
out-
than one committee member who does this, because
I mean,
a lot
I've
of
reached
these
out
things.
to
Find out
Rob.
what their agenda is at first and, and then,
Well, I think we can find out if
Word, and then we'll see. what-
It's helpful. Yeah, but I think, you know, as I said, I think I see a committee member, two public people, I mean, people from the citizens being able to sign up for each of these different areas
Yeah.
that we want to administer, you know, and, you know, that's something we'll get together. Vote to, end the meeting,
Mhm.
second?
Aye.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank
Well
you.
done.
Thanks, Stephen.
Sure.
Feel better, Tony?
Feel better, Tony?
I sent that pump stuff
I
around.
saw it, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, good.
When you hear about Harrison next month, the next
From tennis race being called.
together.
Yeah.
I haven't, that's what I was like,
I'm
when-
looking on it, and I don't see anything. I think we would have heard, because that backcourt case got on out. I think we would have.
Well, every time.
that would be very public, or we would have gotten, I thought we were gonna meet.
I don't think
I think there was something about it in the journal news, actually.
There's been it's in the courts, but
Yeah,
I haven't heard that it was decided.
I think it was
When?
last week,
Probably, and they're gonna be.
yeah.
Building the book.
Did we shut this off and stop recording?
Well, what happened?
How do we do that? Stop
Who won the
recording.
election?
Oh.
Like, who the heck